Chapter 1876. Haha, it'll be fine. I'll take care of them, don't worry. Linny smiled. So Faubert couldn't contact Meng Yao and Yushu. Man, I'm not used to you guys leaving like this. Faubert sighed. When we were together in the past, it felt like a family. But now Mr. Chu and I, two old bachelors, don't know what to do when we get home, and we still want to buy food for you guys after work. Lin Yi sighed softly. Faubert's words made him feel emotional. Faubert's life was quite tragic. Meng Yao and Shu had brought some joy to his lonely life, and he even loved Meng Yao like his own daughter. But now that the three of them were gone, the blow to Faubert was probably even bigger than Peng Zhan's. Peng Zhan's wife wasn't by his side, but at least he had something to think about, and his daughter was his. But Faubert was different. In fact, he had nothing. Faubert, have you ever considered getting another wife? Lin Yi suggested after some thought. Oh, Faubert paused. He didn't expect Lin Yi to bring this up all of a sudden. He smiled bitterly. When I was young, there was hatred in my heart, and I didn't have the mood to look for one. Now that I'm so old, what's there to look for? Besides, I have too many secrets. Just being a cultivator is not something that ordinary people can understand and accept. If my secrets were to be leaked, the gains would not make up for the losses. Moreover, with my current position, I'm afraid that most of those who want to be with me are after money, right? Besides, I can't accept finding a young one who is about the same age as you. How can I find a suitable one? Lin Yi nodded. Faubert's words made sense. With Faubert's current status, it was easy for him to find a young and beautiful girl. However, most of the girls who fell in love with Faubert were probably there for his money. It was not easy for Faubert to find a girl who was of the right age, who didn't have a family at this age. Even if he was divorced or widowed, it was not very suitable. Moreover, he must have a trustworthy character. After all, whether it was Lin Yi or Faubert, they both had too many secrets. If they easily revealed some secrets for the sake of money, then it would really be too late for regrets. Mr. Lin, the two ladies have finished bathing, and the hot water has been reheated. You can take a bath now. Grandma Sun's voice came from outside the room. The hot water and water supply systems in this villa were connected. A large water heater boiled the water, so it could only be used in one bathroom at a time. Otherwise, there would be a lack of hot water. If they were to take a bath, the two would take a bath first, and then Lin Yi would take a bath. Okay, I understand. Lin Yi responded, but his eyes lit up. He suddenly thought of a possibility. Lil Yi, you take a bath first. I just want to make sure that you're safe. Faubert said. Wait, Faubert, there's something I want to talk to you about. Lin Yi said. Oh. What is it? Faubert paused. It's about finding another one. What do you think of Grandma Sun? Lin Yi said. Grandma Sun. She's a good person. There's no problem with trust. During those difficult times, she's always been good to us, and she also saw me deal with the 3 Earth-class masters. She's a trustworthy person. Grandma Sun? Faubert had never met Grandma Sun before, but he had heard Meng Yao talk about her many times. At least in Faubert's heart, Grandma Sun was a very reliable person. Otherwise, if Lin Yi and the others brought her to Donghai, Faubert wouldn't be at ease. However, Uncle Fu was old. Although he had temporarily put down his hatred, his thoughts in this regard had also faded a lot. He didn't really want to look for it, so he smiled and said, Forget it. It's a bit shameful to still think about these things at such an old age. Uff. Lin Yi couldn't help but laugh. Faubert, love doesn't matter. How about this? The next time you come to Donghai to visit us, you can meet Grandma Sunday. If you think you're suitable, then you can get along. If not, then forget it. Then we'll talk about it next time. Faubert obviously didn't care about Lin Yi's suggestion. All right, I was just saying. I'll talk to Grandma Sun about it later. Lin Yi said, All right, let's meet her then. Faubert said helplessly, but from Faubert's point of view, this wasn't going to happen at all. Lin Yi didn't return for the whole night, but the other three didn't suspect anything. After Lin Yi left, Bai Weitua really did call Himeyua's room. After confirming that Xinyan was in the room, the three lost interest in Lin Yi's whereabouts. Of course, they didn't think that Lin Yi would be with other beauties. The next morning, Lin Yi drove to school and parted ways with Meng Yao and Yushu in the parking lot. He walked to the male dorm. October 9th was the official registration day for the faculty, and October 10th was the official start of school. Of course, there might be military training, freshman parties, and other activities after school started, but it all depended on the school's arrangements. Lin Yi went back to the dorm. Bai Weitua and the others had just woken up, and Song Xiaodao was carrying a basin to the bathroom to wash up. Zhao Xingji, on the other hand, had just returned as well. Morning, Lin bro. Where did you go last night? Bai Weitua asked casually. Oh, I have a relative who lives nearby, and he asked me to go over. This was the reason Lin Yi came up with. They'd definitely get suspicious if he wasn't in the dorm on weekends, but going to a relative's house on weekends was normal. I see. Bai Weitua nodded. Zhao Xingji and Song Xiaodao had a look of understanding on their faces as well. Where are we going? When? Lin Yi asked. The faculty sent a notice last night. It's at room 1109 of the biology faculty's main building. Bai Weitua pointed at the notice on the table. Our medicine faculty can fit in one classroom. My brother said that there's less than 20 people this year. That's so little. Lin Yi frowned. This wasn't even as many as a class from another faculty. Can't help it, it's a niche major. Bai Weitua smiled bitterly. But it's good. It's quiet, and there's nothing to worry about. Song Xiaodao came back as the two were talking. The four left the dorm and walked to the biology faculty. The biology faculty's entrance was crowded, and there was no lack of beauties among them. After all, every faculty had their own beauties. Target =_blank. Chapter 1877. Wow, there are quite a few beauties. Song Xiaodao said excitedly. I wonder if there are any from our department. All right, stop looking. Bai Weitua patted Song Xiaodao, who was looking left and right, and said, Don't think about it, there's only one girl in our entire department. No way. Song Xiaodao retracted his gaze, depressed. It can't be the one with Boss Lin, right? That's right. Bai Weitua shrugged. Can't help it. Big Brother told me yesterday that there's only one girl in our department. Oh my God, it can't be? Zhao Xingji said, also depressed. But I heard that there are students who want to transfer over, but I'm afraid it's not a girl, Bai Weitua said. Forget it. I'll look further and go to other departments, Song Xiaodao said helplessly. When they arrived at room 1109, the people in the room were clear at a glance. There were only a few dozen people, and the first two rows weren't full. Wang Xinyan, on the other hand, sat alone in the third row, flipping through the book in her hand. She didn't say a word, just like the first time Lin Yi saw her, quiet and calm. The boys in the first two rows would turn around to peek at Wang Xinyan from time to time, but none of them had the nerve to talk to her. Boss Lin, let's go over. Song Xiaodao smiled and pointed at Wang Xinyan's seat. Lin Yi didn't want to go over, but seeing the three guys in the room, all of them had a natural look in their eyes. Lin Yi smiled bitterly. He was afraid that if he didn't go over, it would seem abnormal to them. Instead of deliberately hiding it, it was better to be open. Anyway, if Bai Weitua and the others weren't here, Lin Yi might choose to sit next to Wang Xinyan. After all, Wang Xinyan was the only person he was familiar with here. Lin Yi and the others walked over and sat in the third row. Lin Yi sat next to Wang Xinyan. The others, on the other hand, sat in the row beside Lin Yi. This was a small classroom with 3 rows of desks. 3 desks together made a total of 9 desks. Wang Xinyan sat by the window, but she sat in the middle, not the innermost seat. There was only 1 seat left, and Lin Yi sat down. The others could only sit at the side. Xinyan paused, frowning as she looked up. It was Lin Yi. She blushed. You? Well, you seem to be the only girl here. Lin Yi asked. Yeah. Xinyan smiled bitterly. That's why my roommates are all from other majors. He Mei Wei and Chai Xiaoling are studying botany, while Xiaoru's studying biochemistry. The three of them aren't from the same specialization? Lin, he was a little surprised. I like this dormitory. It's actually just a patchwork of dormitories. The number of students from each major doesn't necessarily make up the number of dormitories. In the end, there will be a few extra students, and these extra students will be put into the same dormitory. I'm the only girl in our major, so I'm with them, Xinyan explained. I see. Lin nodded, and as the two were talking, the classroom that was buzzing with whispers suddenly quieted down. It was the first time everyone in the classroom met. Although they were familiar with each other's dormitory, it was the first time they met the others, and they were introducing themselves. The sudden silence meant that something must have happened. Lin Yi and Wang Xinyan raised their heads as well. They saw a blonde and a purple-haired guy clearing the way in front of them, and a big, bald guy swaggered into the classroom. He was as arrogant as he could be. He looked like a playboy from ancient times who brought two servants to cause trouble on the streets. A strange look passed through Lin Yi's eyes when he saw this person. Was he also a medical student? Xinyan, on the other hand, was startled. She wasn't unfamiliar with this person. It was because of this person that Lin Yi had a conflict with during the college entrance exams for her. This person was Tiger Wright. Tiger Wright's image was terrible to begin with, and with the blonde and purple-haired guys around him, the students in the classroom naturally felt a sense of fear. They didn't understand why these three gangsters would suddenly appear in the classroom. Tiger Wright was very satisfied with the sudden silence in the classroom. He walked up to the podium and said, "Let me introduce myself. I'm Tiger Wright. When the teacher comes to choose the class monitor, vote for me and you'll benefit. If not, haha." The students didn't want to be threatened by these gangsters right at the start of school. But these three clearly weren't good people, so they obediently shut their mouths. No one dared to talk back. "Blonde, send out the red packets." Tiger Wright said to the blonde. "Yes." The blonde nodded and walked down with a box of red packets. He placed it in front of the first student in the first row. The student understood Tiger Wright's intention, but he didn't dare take the red packet recklessly. He stood there, not knowing what to do. "Fuck. Just take the red packet if it's given to you. I'm giving you face, but you don't want it?" The blonde glared, and the student quickly took out a red packet from the box. After that, the blondie walked in front of the other students, one by one. At present, these students had just gotten to know each other and had not joined forces yet. Naturally, no one dared to resist the blondie alone. Seeing that someone had taken the red packet, they naturally followed suit and took the red packet one by one. When the blonde walked in front of Lin Yi, he clearly froze. He didn't think that Lin Yi would be in the classroom at all, and Lin Yi was sitting in the third row. He didn't stand out at all. Now that he saw Lin Yi, he froze. Lin Yi looked at the blonde with a faint smile, but he was very suspicious. Why did Tiger Wright spend so much effort to choose a class monitor? Logically speaking, the children of the hidden aristocratic families came to school here with the attitude of playing around. But he actually cared about the position of a class monitor. This really made Lin Yi feel a little strange. It should be known that being a class monitor in a university wasn't a very good job. It was like being the dorm leader. It was a job that was responsible for communicating with the tutors, lecturers, the student council, and the students in the class. To put it bluntly, it was a hard labor with no salary. Of course, the reputation was very good, and it was also a kind of training for one's organizational skills. It was also quite beneficial for one's job. However, what use did Tiger Wright have for such a position? The school bell's personal expert welcomed readers to log in. Read the full text. Target equals _blank. Chapter 1878. He wants to be the class monitor. Lin looked at the blonde and asked. At this time, Right Coiling Tiger also saw Lin and he secretly complained in his heart. Mother asterisk her, what is called enemies on a narrow road. This is really strange. Yesterday I met Lin but today I actually saw Lin and he is in the same class as me. How am I going to live in the future? Right now, the Wright family's attitude toward Lin was very cautious. Since the Zhao family's Earth Stage late stage master couldn't do anything to Lin what other tricks did the Wright family have? They couldn't possibly send a Heaven Stage master, right? Even if the Wright family wanted to, the ancient families wouldn't agree. Although the Heavenly Elixir sect was strong, it wasn't something that could be decided by themselves. Yes, Lin, as long as you vote for me, I will reward you in the future. Since Right Coiling Tiger couldn't do anything to Lin, he could only choose to temporarily endure. We don't get to know each other without fighting. How about we be friends? Okay, then I will vote for you. As Lin said this, he snatched the cardboard box from the blonde's hand. There were no less than 20 red envelopes in it. Obviously, Right Coiling Tiger prepared more. The blonde saw Lin swallow the red envelopes, and he was suddenly stunned. This row is all my friends. I will ask them to vote for him later. Lin pointed to Bai Wei-to-Ah and the others. That is good. The blonde didn't dare to argue with Lin, so he let go of his hand resentfully. Lin put the cardboard box on Bai Wei-to-Ah's table and said, Take it back. This is a token of their appreciation. If we don't take it, they will lose face. Right Coiling Tiger was relieved when he got Lin Yi's guarantee. To be honest, he wasn't interested in being the class monitor, but his family valued it very much, and he also knew the significance of this medical major. To be able to set up such a strange major in this science and engineering college, and to be able to do it with only a few people, the power behind this person could not be underestimated. And this person, he was also a person respected by the Yu family. If Yu Panhu could successfully graduate here, he would receive guidance from that person and inherit the position of the Yu family's family head. Ahem. I say, are you trying to replace me by standing on the podium? Do you want to be a lecturer for our medicine department? An old man walked into the classroom and saw Tiger right on the podium. He smiled and made a humorous joke. Although Right Coiling Tiger was domineering, when he saw this person, he acted like a mouse that had seen a cat. He nodded and bowed. Old Bai, when the old man heard how Yu Coiling Tiger addressed him, he frowned slightly and said, This is a school. Call me Professor Bai, or add the word teacher and call me Teacher Bai. The people who came in. This was Bai Wei-to-Ah's grandfather. Lin had long known this identity. It wasn't too surprising. When he had saved the old man had said that he would teach him medical knowledge. However, Lin didn't think much of it at that time. He didn't expect that the old man was actually a professor here. However, this news had been known for 2 days, so Lin wasn't surprised. However, Tiger Wright's respectful look and address made Lin a little curious. Tiger Wright and Bai Wei-to-Ah's grandfather? What was their relationship? Could it be that they had a close relationship? With this thought, Lin Yi's face was a little gloomy. He and Bai Wei-to-Ah were undoubtedly very good friends. If the Yu family and Bai Wei-to-Ah's family had a relationship, then it would be very difficult for Lin to be in the middle. However, when he saw Bai Wei-to-Ah's eyes, Lin realized that he didn't seem to know Tiger Wright at all. He was relieved. It seemed that although Tiger Wright knew Bai Wei-to-Ah's grandfather, he probably wasn't very familiar with him. Yes, Professor Bai, then I will go down. With that said, Tiger Wright brought the purple hair and the yellow hair to the back of the classroom and sat in the 3rd row near the door. His good attitude was beyond Lin Yi's expectations. This Tiger Wright actually respected his teachers so much. Hello, students. I am your professional tutor and the only tutor. In layman's terms, I am the boss in our professional field. What I say counts. Bai Weitua's grandfather walked to the center of the podium and introduced himself humorously. My name is Boss Bai. I have already said it just now. I am the boss here. Huh. The students in the audience were suddenly stunned. They didn't expect a teacher to call himself the boss. And he did it so openly. Don't doubt it. This old man's name is Boss Bai. Bai Weitua's grandfather laughed and said, Every batch of students will be very surprised when they hear this name, but this is the truth. Among you, Bai Weitua is my grandson. He can prove that my name is real. Haha. The students in the audience finally couldn't help but laugh. It could be seen that Boss Bai was a very kind old man. At least, he wasn't as rigid as some teachers. However, in reality, they didn't know that although Boss Bai looked cheerful, he was actually a very strict person. Bai Weitua knew this very well. All right, there is only one class in our professional field, and there are only a dozen or so of you in the class. As for the class monitor, there is no need to hold any election. I will just randomly appoint someone. Boss Bai's gaze swept across the students in the room and finally landed on Lin Yi. He said, Lin Yi, it will be you. Huh. Lin Yi was stunned and looked at Boss Bai in shock. How did he become the class monitor? To be honest, if it was an election for the class monitor, Lin Yi wouldn't mind voting for Tiger Right because he had no intention of fighting for the position of class monitor. But now, Boss Bai unexpectedly didn't let everyone in the class vote. Instead, he randomly appointed himself, which surprised Lin Yi. Lin Yi, stand up and let everyone know you. Boss Bai looked at Lin Yi with a smile. There was an indescribable playfulness in his eyes. There was excitement, joy, and a hint of schadenfreude. Lin Yi stood up helplessly. Tiger Right frowned. He didn't expect that Boss Bai would directly appoint someone instead of letting someone run for the position of class monitor. Although there was no fixed way to elect a class monitor in a university, competitive speeches and voting had become a fixed model in most schools. According to Tiger Right's knowledge, the other departments and majors in Donghai Industry University all elected their class monitors this way. This was also what he learned from Li Biaohan and Zhuang Niadeo. That was why he used the method of giving red packets to attract students. But he didn't expect that it would be completely useless. Although he was annoyed, Tiger Right knew that it wasn't Lin Yi's fault. Looking at Lin Yi's strange expression, it didn't seem like he was faking it. The School Bell's personal expert welcomed readers to log in. Read the full article. Target equals _blank. Chapter 1879. In Right Coiling Tiger's view, there was no need for Lin Yi, a cultivator who had killed 3 Earth stage experts in one move, to lie. He didn't know, so he didn't know. The only explanation was that Boss Bai randomly assigned a person, and somehow he liked Lin Yi. Right Coiling Tiger was a little dissatisfied. He didn't want to lose this opportunity to make the old man of the Yu family look up to him. So he secretly gave the blonde a look. Mr. Bai, I think we should run for class monitor, right? We're not familiar with each other, and we don't know each other if we randomly assign a class monitor. Why don't we compete to make a speech and then vote? The blonde suggested. This student, did you not hear what I said just now? I am the boss of the medical major. If you want to study here, you have to listen to me, or else I can help you transfer to another major. You can go anywhere. Boss Bai's face darkened, and his smiling face changed as he said coldly. This shocked the students present. This seemingly smiling old man turned out to be a smiling tiger. He turned hostile, just like that. Everyone secretly wiped their sweat. Fortunately, they didn't do anything out of line before. Otherwise, they would be the ones being scolded now. The blonde shrank his head. Obviously, he didn't dare to argue with Boss Bai, and Right Coiling Tiger was a little frustrated. It seemed that his dream was shattered. Lin Yi was stunned. He originally wanted to decline, but after hearing what Boss Bai said, he had to give up the idea. Although Lin Yi saved his life, he was Lin Yi's mentor at the moment. No matter what, Lin Yi couldn't go against him. Since everyone has no objections, Then I will talk about the arrangements for the freshmen after school starts. Boss Bai was very satisfied with everyone's reaction. He nodded slowly and said, "Our department is small and we don't have so many rules. The only rule is that what I say is the rule, and what I don't say you can do as I said. If you do it again, then I'm sorry. Just wait to fail at the end of the term." Boss Bai was the only one who could threaten a student in such a way in public. After school starts, there will be military training and a party for freshmen. The military training will be held from October 11th to October 20th, a total of 10 days. The results of the military training will be counted into your credits, and you will get a total of 6 credits. Boss Bai said the military training is arranged by the school. I won't talk about the rules and regulations. Someone will tell you when the time comes. After the military training, it was time for the freshmen's evening party. According to the usual practice, every department and every major had to come up with a program. However, we are the smallest major in the biology department and also the smallest major in the entire school, so we can only come up with one program. However, although our department is small, I don't want you to embarrass me. After the military training, if the program is good and the results are good, then everyone will get 5 credits. If it's not good, Lin Yi was speechless. This was the first time he had heard of such a teaching method. Wasn't this mentor a little too overbearing? They would threaten students with failing courses and losing credits at the drop of a hat. However, these 2 things were especially important to university students. If one failed a course, they would have to take a make-up exam. If they failed the make-up exam, they would have to retake the course. If they did not have enough credits, they would not be able to graduate. This made everyone very depressed. However, Boss Bai said that he was in charge here. As for Boss Bai's style, Lin Yi was already used to it. Since such a small major existed, and Boss Bai's teaching method was so unique, it must have been tacitly approved by the school. Therefore, even if it was reported to the principal, there might not be any results. Okay, that's all I have to say. Everyone go back and play. Tomorrow, the other majors have to come to the college students' rules and regulations class, but we don't have to attend it. The rules and regulations are not to be memorized, but to be followed by how you do it. 1 copy for each person, and it will be included in the teaching materials. Go back and read it carefully. Don't let me catch you in the act, or don't blame me for being ruthless. After saying that, Boss Bai looked at Lin Yi and said to him, "Class monitor Lin Yi, come to the office with me. Everyone else is dismissed." On the faces of everyone in the class, there was no one without a bitter smile. They applied for this major more or less because their families were in the pharmaceutical industry, and some elders in their families had heard of Boss Bai's reputation, so they applied for this major. Originally, they thought that the smaller the major, the easier it would be to survive, but unexpectedly it was not the case at all. But now that they were here, they could only abide by it. If Boss Bai really transferred them to another major, no one could afford to lose face. Lin Yi shrugged and glanced at Wang Xinyan, wondering how he could transfer the position of the class monitor to her. On one hand, she seemed to be excellent, and on the other hand, she was the only girl in the class, so everyone should give her some face. Of course, if Wang Xinyan couldn't convince everyone, then Lin Yi would recommend Bai Weituo. After all, he was Boss Bai's grandson, and he was the most suitable candidate. Thinking of this, Lin Yi stood up and followed Boss Bai out of the classroom. Although Right Coiling Tiger wanted to compete for the position of the class monitor, he had to give up when he thought of Lin Yi's achievements. After leaving the classroom, Boss Bai changed his expression and said to Lin Yi with a smile, "Haha, young man, I said I would teach you medicine and take you as my disciple, but you didn't agree. How about now? You're my disciple again, right?" "Damn, I didn't know you were a tutor here." Lin Yi smiled bitterly. "Now I fulfilled your wish." "That's true, but my original idea was to take you as my disciple and teach you some special medical skills, the kind that can't be learned in school." Boss Bai said, "Oh, what's that?" Lin Yi's heart moved slightly. To be honest, when he heard Boss Bai say these words at the entrance of the examination room, Lin Yi didn't really care. Teach him medicine? Boss Bai couldn't even cure his own illness. How could he teach him? But after seeing Right Coiling Tiger's attitude toward Boss Bai, he had a slightly different idea. Who was Right Coiling Tiger? He was the second young master of the Hidden Right family. The Hidden Right family was good at medicine and alchemy. In terms of medical attainments, he was probably not below Lin Yi and Old Lin. However, Right Coiling Tiger was so respectful to Boss Bai, which explained some problems. There's only one disciple. Otherwise, he wouldn't be called a disciple. I've already taken in a good seedling. Boss Bai glanced at Lin Yi and said with a smile, "How about it? Do you regret it now?" "It's all right," Lin Yi said lightly. How could he not know that the old man was talking nonsense? Only one disciple? There were only two by Wei Tuo and by Wei Kai. Obviously, this old man was keeping him in suspense. The School Bell's personal expert welcomed readers to log in. Read the full text. Target equals _blank. Chapter 1880. But I will slowly examine your aptitude and then teach you some special things, but I don't know much about your aptitude yet, so I can only observe slowly. Boss Bai said. While talking, Boss Bai took Lin Yi out of the teaching building and came to the faculty building of the biology department. What Lin Yi didn't expect was that Boss Bai's workplace was actually the basement of the faculty building, and it was the whole floor. It was a bit bullying to arrange an old man to work in the basement, but giving the whole basement to Boss Bai was not bullying, but taking care of him. This floor is all yours. Lin Yi was a little surprised and pointed at the sign on the side of the corridor that said Medical Office Area. Yes, how is it? Not bad. Boss Bai chuckled. That's my lab, and there's also a research room and a medicine refining room. Medicine refining? Lin Yi's eyes slightly narrowed. Although Boss Bai was talking about concocting medicine, not concocting pills, the word concocting made Lin Yi's heart skip a beat. Oh, it's the place where medicine is brewed and prepared. Medicine refining is just a way of saying it. Boss Bai thought that Lin Yi didn't understand the meaning of medicine refining, so he explained. I see. Lin Yi nodded. Boss Bai took Lin Yi into the innermost office, opened the door, and Boss Bai and Lin Yi walked in together. The office was very clean, with only a shelf, a writing desk, and a sofa. What surprised Lin Yi was that the shelf was full of thread-bound books, which seemed to be ancient manuscripts, which was somewhat similar to old Lin's shelf. These are all copied by me. Most of the ones that haven't been published are other people's medical experiences, and a small part is my own summary. Boss Bai saw Lin Yi's surprised look and explained with a smile. Lin Yi nodded deeply. It seemed that Boss Bai was indeed not an ordinary person, but last time the meridians in his body seemed to be either destroyed or blocked. Did he not cure his own disease? But when he thought about it, he came to a realization before he started practicing the art of dragon mastery. Fighting Huaijuan would reduce his pain and extend his lifespan, but it wouldn't be able to repair his meridians and turn him back into a spiritual practitioner. Ordinary doctors couldn't do anything about it. Then what could Boss Bai do? No matter how powerful he was, it was impossible for him to repair his meridians. Very good. There are many similar books in my old man's bookshelf. Lin, he said frankly, you're also from a medical family? No wonder. Boss Bai was relieved to hear Lin Yi's words. No wonder Lin Yi didn't agree to be his disciple so easily. It turned out that he was also a member of a medical family. However, Boss Bai had never heard of any medical family surnamed Lin. Not exactly an aristocratic family. The old man was alone, and I was picked up by him. Oh, right, Elder Bai, what do you think I'm doing? Can I discuss something with you? Boss Bai didn't seem to object to Lin Yi calling him Mr. Bai. Instead, he said, what is it? How about letting Bai Weitoa or Wang Xinyan be the class monitor? Lin Yi asked. Why should we let them? Don't you know it's a good job? Boss Bai said, at least in terms of credits, I will give you extra points because the student council of our major will fall on you. Bai Weitua is a graduate student and doesn't have much time left. Student council of our major will have extra credits, and a lot of them. These credits are enough for you to study a second major. That's great. Brother Xiao Kai retired, and his brother Bai Weitua will take over. Lin Yi said, to be honest, I don't have much time and I may ask for leave often. So, I really can't be the class monitor. Ask for leave? Don't you know the rules of our major? Boss Bai narrowed his eyes and asked. Yes, I know. It's said that I only need to separate and identify a bunch of medicinal materials that you make. Lin Yi said. So you can do it? Boss Bai stared at Lin Yi with a strange light in his eyes. Lin Yi smiled. If that's all, then I think it should be possible. Okay. Boss Bai nodded and said, 2 choices, 1 difficult and 1 easy. If you pass the easy one, then you don't have to take the final exam. I will pass all of them for you, and you can also ask for leave. What about the difficult one? Lin Yi didn't hear the condition of not being the class monitor, so he continued to ask. The difficult one. If you pass it, you can appoint someone else as the class monitor. You can leave at normal times without asking for leave. Just tell me when you have time. Besides, if you pass it 4 times in a row in 4 years, I can let you graduate directly. Boss Bai stated his conditions. Okay, I choose the difficult one. Lin Yi nodded and said, yes, the difficult one is very difficult. After so many years, no one has passed it. Think about it carefully. Boss Bai said. Yes, I have. Lin Yi nodded. Okay, I will give you a random question. After you read the question, you can change to an easier one if you don't want to answer it. But if you answer it wrong, then you won't have a chance anymore. Boss Bai said as he opened the drawer and rummaged randomly. No need, Boss Bai, you choose the question. Lin Yi said, hee, this is it. Boss Bai took out a small box from the drawer and put it in front of Lin Yi. He smiled cunningly. This is it. Tell me what's inside. Huh. Lin Yi's eyes widened. He looked at the small box on the table in disbelief, because it was a box of Miracle Dr. Guan's injury medicine. Haha, what's wrong? Scared? Boss Bai looked at Lin Yi proudly. He was very satisfied that he tricked him. Not to mention the injury medicine, which was made up of more than 10 kinds of herbs. Even if a few of them were mixed into a medicine, it would still be very difficult to distinguish the herbs. Not to mention Lin Yi's age. Even the heads of those medical families didn't have this ability. No. Lin Yi smiled bitterly. He's still being stubborn, but I will allow you to make 1 mistake. How about it? Is that fair? Boss Bai smiled and said, fair, it's extremely fair. Lin Yi was speaking from the bottom of his heart. This question was too easy for him. If that's the case, we can start. Boss Bai saw that Lin Yi didn't regret his decision, so he said angrily, this injury medicine has strychnus, dragon bone, southern red flower, 5 coins, chuanqiang live, crab bone, angelica sinensis, radix parsnip, Angelica dehurica. Lin Yi slowly said the formula of the injury medicine. Target equals _ blank. Chapter 1881. Although he didn't think that Boss Bai was the kind of person who would steal the formula, Lin Yi was still not familiar with him, so he didn't tell him about the other medicine. Boss Bai also said that he was allowed to make 1 mistake. Hearing Lin Yi's words, Boss Bai's eyes turned serious from the initial teasing. He came up with this question casually to make things difficult for Lin Yi and make him stay in school. Although Lin Yi had some medical skills, there are still many things that he didn't know. However, Lin Yi actually told him the formula of the injury medicine so casually, which made Boss Bai's eyes widen in shock. Lin Yi guessed correctly. He wasn't trying to get the formula, because he didn't even know that the injury medicine was made by Lin Yi. Otherwise, he wouldn't have come up with this kind of question. He had also tried to figure out the formula of the injury medicine before. Of course, with his ability, figuring out the formula of the injury medicine wasn't a difficult thing. However, he was just curious because there was someone who could sell injury medicine at such a low price. He also had a copy of the ancient formula of the golden creation medicine, and the golden creation medicine produced by Dr. Kang's medical company was from this formula. However, the ingredients of this formula were extremely expensive, so Boss Bai was very confused. Miracle Dr. Guan's injury medicine was so cheap, so he either changed the formula or he was making a loss. So he studied it for a while, and then he was amazed by the person who could make this formula, who was so powerful that they actually had such a solid knowledge of medicine and could make these ordinary ingredients that couldn't be any more effective. However, even Boss Bai only came up with a complete formula after studying for many days. It was absolutely impossible for him to say it so quickly like Lin Yi. So, Boss Bai's face changed a little, and the way he looked at Lin Yi was a little different. "Old Bai, am I right?" Lin Yi asked with a smile. "That's right." Boss Bai shook his head absent-mindedly. Then he sighed. "Although there's a missing ingredient, the rest are accurate." "Wait, that's not right. You haven't even opened the box." "How do you know?" Boss Bai was so shocked that he forgot one important thing. That was, Lin Yi had only been talking about the prescription without opening the box of the injury medicine. So how did he judge it? Boss Bai didn't know what Lin Yi was thinking. Could it be that he already had this prescription? Lin Yi's eyes also flashed with a trace of surprise. Boss Bai actually knew that he had missed a medicinal material? Didn't that mean that he already knew the formula for the injury medicine? Although Lin Yi had the ability, Lin Yi was confident that even old man Lin was no match for him. For old Lin to be able to distinguish so carefully, he had to go through several days of speculation and analysis of the effects of various medicinal ingredients to be able to do this. However, Lin Yi had grown up in a pile of medicinal ingredients and had talent in this area, so he was able to quickly analyze the prescription. For example, the products of Dr. Kong Medical Company, but Boss Bai could do it too? Yes. Only Chuanxiong is missing. But how do you know? Lin Yi asked with some uncertainty. You know? How do you know? Boss Bai's eyes widened. You already had this prescription before? Of course. Lin Yi nodded, but he admired Boss Bai in his heart. Lin Yi rarely admired anyone, even Guan Xuemin. Guan Xuemin was just a friend, so there was nothing that Lin Yi admired about him. But for Boss Bai, Lin Yi really admired him. Why do you have this prescription? Boss Bai looked at Lin Yi strangely. Would you believe me if I told you that I was the one who came up with this recipe? Lin Yi asked, thinking of something. Since he had already exposed so much, he might as well expose more. By then, Boss Bai would probably not interfere if he wanted to skip classes. You. Boss Bai opened his mouth and looked at Lin Yi strangely. After a while, he nodded and said, I believe you. Why? Lin Yi was confused. Why did Boss Bai believe him? This kind of medicine is made of more than 10 kinds of medicinal materials. Even if we analyze it with instruments, we can't get any results. It's all based on our own sense of smell. Since you can tell me, why should I doubt you? This prescription is confidential. Boss Bai looked at Lin Yi, not knowing what he was thinking. Well, I'm just being opportunistic. Mr. Bai, can you give me another question? Said Lin Yi. Did you discover the special edition Golden Creation and the weight loss medicine of Dr. Kong Medical Company? Boss Bai, however, didn't answer Lin Yi's question. Instead, he asked another irrelevant question. This time, it was Lin Yi's turn to be surprised. Wasn't Boss Bai's thinking a little too strong? Why do you ask? Lin Yi squinted his eyes and looked at Boss Bai. Since this prescription was made by you, then you must have a special relationship with Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company. The problem with Miracle Dr. Kang's product was also discovered by Miracle Dr. Guan's medical company. So, I'm afraid that it was made by one person. Only the person who made this prescription has this kind of ability, Boss Bai said. That's right. Huh. Mr. Bai, your analysis is correct. That was also discovered by me. Lin nodded quickly. It was not unreasonable for Boss Bai to guess it from this. Well, you have surprised me. It's far beyond my expectation. Boss Bai nodded slowly, so I accept your suggestion. No more questions. Didn't you say that as long as I answer 4 questions correctly, I can graduate directly? Then, now that I have answered 4 questions, there won't be any trouble in the future, right? Lin asked. No need to answer. If I'm not wrong, the other products of Miracle Dr. Guan Medical Company are also made by you? Boss Bai laughed and said, If that's the case, my questions are easy for you. I'm a bit regretful now. I should have asked for more difficult questions. More difficult questions? Lin frowned slightly. Forget it. Let's not talk about this. Boss Bai waved his hand. But although you are very good, remember, you can learn unexpected knowledge from me. What knowledge? Lin asked curiously. It was not the first time he heard Boss Bai say this. I can't say for now. You will know in the future, Boss Bai said. Okay. I suggest Bai Weitua be the class monitor and Wang Xinyan be the vice monitor, Lin said. The Campus Bell's personal expert. Welcome readers to log in. Read the full text. Target equals _ blank. Chapter 1882. Okay, I'll listen to you. Boss Bai nodded without hesitation. Then, if there's nothing else, I'll go back first. Lin said. Goodbye, Boss Bai said. Lin shrugged. This Boss Bai was really weird, especially his relationship with him. He was his savior, but Boss Bai didn't mention anything about the past. What surprised Lin even more was that Boss Bai's medical research was really good. It was no wonder that Right Coiling Tiger was so respectful towards him. There was actually such a character hidden in this little-known minor profession. After leaving Boss Bai's office, Lin didn't go back to the classroom. Instead, he went back to the dorm. Lin bro, what did my grandpa say to you? Bai Weitua saw Lin coming back and immediately went up to him. Nothing much. I recommended you to be the class leader. Let Wang Xinyan be the vice class leader. I don't have time. Lin said directly. Ah, no way. Then my grandpa agreed? Bai Weitua asked curiously. He agreed. Lin nodded. He really agreed? Bai Weitua froze. Although Lin saved his grandpa's life, his grandpa had been nagging at home these days that he must teach Lin well and make him his proud disciple. So Bai Weitua wasn't surprised that his grandpa made Lin the class leader. However, it would be strange if his grandpa agreed after Lin resigned. Really? Lin nodded. That's unbelievable. Bai Weitua was a little surprised. Haha, it's okay. Lin didn't say much. There were many people in the dorm. Although they were familiar with each other, Lin didn't plan to tell them the truth. Right, Lin bro? Are you free in the afternoon? Bai Weitua asked. Afternoon? I'll ask. Lin remembered that the miss said she would monitor him for Xiao Xiao, so he texted her first. Otherwise, she wouldn't be satisfied. Meng Yao and Yushu were from the economics department. Things were not as simple as Lin Yi's pharmacy department. The economics department had a class committee competition to give a speech, the department's student council competition to give a speech, the school's student council competition to give a speech, and so on. Therefore, there was no break in the afternoon at all. In fact, there was no tomorrow. Therefore, Lin asked. The eldest miss replied straightforwardly. She had something to do in the department in the afternoon. Let Lin arrange his own time. Nothing, Lin said. This relative of yours is really a busybody. Even when you go out in the afternoon, he has to ask for permission. Isn't his girlfriend just SSO? Bai Weitua said in surprise. Huh. Lin thought to himself. He was helping his girlfriend. So it should be more or less the same, right? Well, since there's nothing else, I've asked Himeiwa's dorm out. Let's go out and play in the afternoon. Zhao Xingji and Song Xiaodao were both from out of town and wanted to take a stroll. I remember that you are not from Donghai City. Well, you have relatives. Bai Weitua chattered on. I don't come here often, Lin Yi said, but Himeiwa and the others also have a break in the afternoon. They don't participate in the class committee election, so there's nothing much to do. The afternoon is the time for each major to run for the class committee. Bai Weitua explained. I see. Lin Yi nodded and said, then let's go out and walk around. At 1:00 in the afternoon, in front of the number 1 teaching building of the biology department, Lin Yi, Bai Weitua, Song Xiaodao, and Zhao Xingji met Himeiwa, Wang Xinyan, and Chai Xiaoling. As for Lan Xiaoru, it was said that she went on a date with her boyfriend, so she didn't have time. However, there were 2 more boys beside Himeiwa. One of them was talking to Himeiwa happily when Lin Yi and the others arrived. Wang Xinyan. Lin Yi greeted Wang Xinyan and walked over quickly. I say, Fan Ganha, now you see, Xinyan is already taken. You don't have much hope. Himeiwa smiled and said to the other boy beside her. The boy named Fan Ganha looked at Lin Yi with a trace of hostility. When he and another boy went to the dormitory to look for Himeiwa yesterday, he saw Wang Xinyan with Himeiwa. At that time, he fell in love with Wang Xinyan. But when he heard that Wang Xinyan was taken, he was naturally unhappy. Fan Ganha suddenly walked in front of Lin Yi and reached out to Lin Yi. Lin Yi was slightly stunned. He didn't understand whether this guy wanted to show off or what. Although he was far away, Lin Yi still heard what Himeiwa and Fan Ganha said clearly. Lin Yi. Since the other person was Himeiwa's friend, Lin Yi didn't need to offend him. He reached out and shook hands with him, saying lightly, I will compete. Fan Ganha didn't provoke Lin Yi with his hand, only promising. I'm not Xinyan's boyfriend. I'm just familiar with her. We come from the same place. Lin Yi saw through Fan Ganha's thoughts and smiled. Fan Ganha was stunned. He didn't expect Lin Yi to say this, but he thought that Lin Yi was afraid after seeing his physique. After all, Fan Ganha was from the sports department, and he was obviously a size bigger than Lin. Lin Yi looked harmless, so he shouldn't be Fan Ganha's opponent. Thinking of this, a trace of contempt flashed in Fan Ganha's eyes. Even Himeiwa frowned. Before, Himeiwa had a good impression of Lin Yi, but now she was looking down on Lin Yi. I say, Lin Yi, you're not going to back down, are you? Himeiwa felt sorry for Xinyan. No, he's right. We're just friends, after all. Xinyan found it funny. Was Lin Yi afraid of Fan Ganha? That's because you didn't see how strong Lin Yi was. Even someone as strong as Yellow Hair got thrown out of the classroom window by Lin Yi. Xinyan wasn't from a noble house, but she'd heard about them. Uncle Pai from the Xiao family had died in Lin Yi's hands, and Pai Yangyang and Mr. Pai had been killed by Lin Yi's lackeys. She probably wouldn't think that way, but Xinyan didn't explain because some things couldn't be said casually. That's even better. I don't have to worry about it anymore. Fan Ganha blinked before nodding. Himeiwa, on the other hand, looked at Xinyan strangely. She had a preconceived notion that there was something going on between Lin Yi and Xinyan, but since both parties had denied it, Himeiwa wouldn't press the issue. Meiwa, you've been waiting for a long time, right? The men's room is a bit far. Bai Weitua smiled, breaking the awkwardness as he greeted Himeiwa. Meiwa, this is? The guy beside Himeiwa asked suddenly. Target equals _blank. Chapter 1883. Did the car break down? Zhang Duopan. This is Bai Weitua from our dorm. Bai Weitua, this is my high school classmate, Zhang Duopan. Himeiwa introduced them. Hello. Zhang Duopan extended his hand, but his posture was a bit arrogant. He looked at Bai Weitua and said, My name is Zhang Duopan, Meiwa's high school classmate and flower guardian. Bai Weitua was stunned. Flower guardian? But then he remembered Himeiwe said yesterday that she didn't have a boyfriend. So this Jean Duopan was most likely a pursuer who hadn't succeeded yet. Bai Weitua didn't want to be outdone, Flower Guardian? I think it's probably self-proclaimed, right? Jean Duopan's face suddenly darkened. Bai Weitua had hit his soft spot. When they were in high school, he had pursued Himeiwe, but she always rejected him with the reason that her studies were more important. Now that they were in university, and they happened to be in the same school, he brought up the past again. But Himeiwe didn't respond to him directly, which made Jean Duopan very unhappy. Are you here to pick a fight? Jean Duopan asked coldly. I'm just speaking the truth, and I want to be your flower guardian too. Bai Weitua didn't want to reveal his intention so early. After all, picking up a girl needed to be done step by step. If he said it all at once and got rejected, there would be no room for negotiation. But slowly with feelings it would be much easier. But now, if Bai Weitua didn't say it, someone else would beat him to it. He could only express his position. Himeiwe pursed her lips and didn't say anything. She didn't like Jean Duopan, but she didn't hate him either. They were like friends, so naturally Himeiwe couldn't directly agree to his pursuit. As for Bai Weitua, Himeiwe had a good impression of him, but she was a little surprised that he wanted to pursue her on the second day they met. That's good. Having a competitor can make my fighting spirit high. Jean Duopan and Fan Ganha were both from rich families. Fighting was common in high school, but after they entered university, they became more restrained. After all, they weren't familiar with the place and people, so they didn't dare to be too arrogant. At least, it wasn't good to be arrogant before they figured out the other's strength. Where are we going in the afternoon? Zhao Xingji tried to smooth things over. He could tell that Jean Duopan and Bai Weitua were going to fight. Although the four of them weren't necessarily afraid of the two of them, it wasn't good for freshmen to fight. We discussed it just now and decided to go to a nearby KTV. Our department will be performing 2 programs at the freshmen's party. One of them is a solo, and Meiwe signed up for it, Chai Shaoling explained. Oh, Meiwe, you can even sing? Bai Weitua was surprised. You don't know, do you? In our high school, Meiwe was known as the Skylark. Jean Duopan said proudly. At that time, our class's solo performance always won first place in the school. It's just a hobby. If it weren't for my family's disapproval, I would have applied for a music academy. Himeiwe shrugged and said, My parents are more conservative. They don't like me to mix in the entertainment circle. That's true. If Meiwe applied for a music academy, she would be a superstar in the future. That Su Shirhan wouldn't be her opponent. Jean Duopan said casually. He originally wanted to praise Himeiwe, but he regretted it after saying it, because Himeiwe's idol was Su Shirhan. Wasn't saying that Su Shirhan wasn't good. As expected, Himeiwe's face changed slightly. She said indifferently, I'm far from Su Shirhan. I'm just an amateur. Haha, I was just saying it casually. Jean Duopan said awkwardly. Su Shirhan is indeed amazing. Not only is she beautiful, but her songs are also very nice. I like her too. Bai Weitua wasn't stupid. He immediately saw through Himeiwe's thoughts. But in fact, he did like listening to Su Shirhan songs. Most young people liked Su Shirhan. You like Su Shirhan too? Himeiwe's eyes lit up. Yeah, I can sing some songs too. Bai Weitua nodded. Okay, then let's sing together later. Himeiwe said happily. This made Jean Duopan's face turn ugly. He suggested to go to KTV naturally to practice with Himeiwe. He didn't have any talent in singing. Saying he was tone deaf was already flattering him. Even if he went to rap, he wouldn't be able to remember the lyrics. He didn't expect Bai Weitua to talk about his disadvantage. Jean Duopan laughed and changed the topic. Let's go, we'll go now. Right, I drove here, but it can only seat 5 people. You guys take a taxi? Jean Duopan didn't want to drag Bai Weitua even if he had a car. Besides, a car could only seat 5 people. Himeiu's dorm room had 3 people, including him and Fan Ganha. It was no more and no less. As he said that, Zhang Duopan took out a car key from his pocket and said, "It's so convenient to have a car now." Bai Weituo humphed coldly at Zhang Duopan's bragging. Although Zhang Duopan was obviously mocking them, the car could seat 5 people. He couldn't find anything wrong with it. Wang Xinyan, on the other hand, wanted to say something but stopped herself. She actually had a car, but she wasn't the kind of person who liked to show off. Her car was a sports car, and it was quite eye-catching. She hadn't moved it since yesterday. It wasn't good for a girl to be too flamboyant, so she said, "You guys take the car, I'll accompany them. Otherwise, they won't be able to find the KTV. The KTV was found last night when Wang Xinyan's dorm went shopping. It wasn't far from here, but it wasn't close either. Driving was a little useless, but Zhang Duopan's main goal was to show off his strength, not to drive." Wang Xinyan's words made Fan Ganha's expression change, but he couldn't do anything about it. After all, who could be Lin Yi's guide? Only Wang Xinyan was suitable. The group arrived at the parking lot. Zhang Duopan pointed at a Land Rover Aurora proudly and pressed the remote in his hand, but he didn't hear the familiar sound of the car door opening. This surprised him, but he pressed the remote again. The car still didn't respond. This phenomenon caused Zhang Duopan to be slightly stunned. Just when he was about to take a closer look at the car, another car stopped nearby, and a man and a woman got out. They looked like a rich student couple. They had just arrived, so they didn't know that Zhang Duopan was the owner of the car. The man said to the woman, "The car next to it doesn't belong to some idiot. It's been flashing all night, and now it's probably out of battery. When the driver comes, he probably won't even be able to open the door. Target equals _ blank." Chapter 1884. Zhang Duopan's face darkened when he heard this. The flashlight was modified by him. Because it was connected directly to the battery, it didn't go through the car's circuit. So, it was normal to keep flashing until the battery ran out. The day before yesterday, when he drove to school, it was already evening. In order to show off his coolness, he turned on the flashlight. There was no traffic police on campus anyway, so no one would care about him. However, he forgot to turn it off when he got out of the car. In the past 2 days and nights, the battery ran out. Bro, can you help me connect the battery to the battery?" Zhang Duopan turned his head helplessly and looked at the guy who just called him a dumb asterisk. Although he was scolded, he could only beg because there was only the man and woman beside the car in the parking lot at this time. "Ugh, is this your car?" The guy saw the owner of the car after he scolded him, and he suddenly felt embarrassed. "It's mine. Haha. Sorry for making a fool of myself." Zhang Duopan said with a bitter face, "You can, but do you have electric pliers?" The guy asked, "No." Zhang Duopan shook his head. Who would bring electric pliers out for no reason? It would be better to bring a spare battery. "Then I can't help it. You can call for help." "I don't have it either." The guy shook his head, locked the car, and prepared to leave. "Call for help? Are you kidding me? If I were to call for help here, how long would that take? Would Himeiu still practice singing? Then, let's take a taxi." Zhang Duopan shrugged awkwardly. It wasn't easy to get a chance to act cool. But the car ran out of battery before he could do it. "Oh, you guys take a taxi. We have a car," Lin Yi said as he took out the remote control for the Grand Cherokee. The lights of the Grand Cherokee not far away flashed. Zhang Duopan was extremely embarrassed at this time. He had been bragging to others about his car, but he didn't expect that. The other party also had one. Not only did they have one, but it was not inferior to his car. Although the Grand Cherokee was low-key, it was expensive. Zhang Duopan often studied cars, so he naturally knew it. Fan Ganha's face was also very ugly. Before, they had cars, but now it was the other way around. Lin Yi had a car, but they had to take a taxi. Sorry, including Xi and Yen, there are 5 of us. Although this car has 7 seats, there are still 2 extra people. Sorry. Lin Yi looked at Zhang Duopan apologetically. The Jeep was a 7-seater, but it was modified to hold Xiao Xiao's ice coffin. Now that the coffin was removed, the seats went back to their original positions. This is nothing. What else could Zhang Duopan say? Now that things had come to this, they could only accept it. Let's take a taxi. It's also convenient, huh? However, Zhang Duopan's words at this moment. After all, he was the one who bragged the most before, but now he could only take a taxi. Meiwe didn't say anything, but it was obvious that she was looking down on Zhang Duopan. She felt that Lin Yi wasn't afraid of Fan Ganha, but that he really didn't have any substantial relationship with Xinyan. From the looks of it, he wasn't someone who liked to show off. Otherwise, when Zhang Duopan said he had a car, people would have said it already. But Lin Yi only said he had a car when they got to the parking lot. Although this car was not by Wei Tuo's, Wei Tuo was very refreshed, as if he had vented his anger. He said, "Some people think that they are great just because they have a car. Don't they know that cars are very common now?" Get in. Lin Yi opened the driver's door. It was a 3-seater car, but Meiwe and Xiaoling sat in the last row, and it wasn't too crowded. The front passenger seat was left for Xinyan. Xinyan shook her head slightly and got in the car. It seemed that these people had already decided that she and Lin Yi were a couple. Zhang Duopan and Fan Ganha looked at Lin Yi's car leave the parking lot with dark expressions. At the end of the day, they were the only ones left without a car. When they got to the school gate, Zhang Duopan and Fan Ganha stopped a taxi and rushed to the KTV. But when they got there, Meiwe had already started singing. Coincidentally, the 2 of them were singing a love song. This song was sung by Su Shirhan and her teacher, so naturally, no one would think too much about it. But Meiwe and Bai Wei Tuo singing together, it was a bit ambiguous. Zhang Duopan looked at Bai Wei Tuo, who sang well and was in the limelight. He began to ponder. He had already lost a lot of face today. Meiwe must have lost a lot of her impression. If he wanted to win back this round, he might have to put in more effort. In high school, Zhang Duopan didn't have any competitors. He went to a key high school, and the school discipline was very strict. Only students like him, who came from a rich family, would play dirty tricks. The other students only focused on their studies. But it was different in university. You could have a serious relationship here, and the school and teachers wouldn't interfere. If he wanted to beat Bai Wei Tuo, he would have to show some skills. Lin Yi and Wang Xinyan were sitting together, and this made Fan Ganha a bit unhappy. He wanted to go over, but Xiaoling was sitting on the other side of Wang Xinyan. He didn't have a chance. "Zhang bro, we need to think of something." Fan Ganha was a strong student, but his family didn't have much money. He went to Donghai Industry University, and he was a special student. Zhang Duopan, on the other hand, was a self-funded student. His family was quite well off, and he always treated Fan Ganha. So Fan Ganha was willing to call him Zhang bro. Fuck! This guy came out of nowhere! Zhang Duopan looked at Bai Wei Tuo and said angrily, "It's not just that Bai Wei Tuo, that Lin. He's a fucking pig in sheep's clothing. Why didn't he say he had a car? He made a fool of you, Zhang bro." Fan Ganha wanted to pursue Wang Xinyan, so naturally he didn't like Lin Yi. "How about this? You go get some beer, and we'll use this drinking competition as an excuse to get them drunk. It's best if we can embarrass them and make them look bad." Zhang Duopan said to Fan Ganha, "Okay." Fan Ganha agreed immediately. It was common for them to drink in high school, and they would carry boxes of beer when they went to restaurants. It wasn't a problem for them to drink a box of beer. Fan Ganha left the room, and after a while he came back with 5 boxes of beer. The beer in KTV was small, but 5 boxes was a lot. 5 boxes of beer was nothing to Fan Ganha, who was a strong student. He brought them in directly, But Zhao Xingji and Song Xiaodao's faces changed. The beauty's personal expert welcomed readers to log in. Read the full article. Target equals _blank. Chapter 1885. They could vaguely guess Zhang Duopan's intentions. Sure enough, when Bai Weitua finished his song, Zhang Duopan said, "Brothers, I was late just now. I wanted to treat you, but you've already paid the deposit. I can only buy some beer as an apology. Drinking alcohol isn't too good, right?" Song Xiaodao didn't have any goals here. Wang Xinyan was already taken. Himeiwa had Bai Weitua fighting for her, and Chai Shaoling and Zhao Xingji were having a heated conversation. Song Xiaodao didn't plan to look for her here, and he didn't have a high tolerance for alcohol anyway. It's okay. We're both university students. If you don't know how to drink, you can do whatever you want. Zhang Duopan wasn't targeting Song Xiaodao, so it didn't matter if he drank or not. After that, Zhang Duopan looked at Bai Weitua provocatively and said, "Brother, after singing, how about moistening your throat? Don't tell me you can't drink it, or I'll look down on you." Although Zhang Duopan didn't say it clearly, Bai Weitua understood what he meant. In front of Himeiwa, Bai Weitua was naturally unwilling to show weakness. If he were to admit defeat at this time, wouldn't he lose face? Let's drink. Who's afraid of who? Although Bai Weitua's alcohol tolerance wasn't very good, young men of his age always liked to let their emotions affect their decisions. He clearly knew that the other party was trying to provoke him, but in front of a beautiful woman, he had no choice but to take the bait. "Lin Yi, the two of us." Fan Gon had taunted Lin Yi. Lin Yi and Xinyan were sitting together, and he hadn't been able to get a word in edgewise. Now that there was a chance, he wouldn't let it go. Lin Yi didn't want to participate in this boring game, but seeing Bai Weitua's appearance, he knew that this kid wanted to see who was better. Lin Yi shook his head helplessly. Since Bai Weitua called him Big Brother, how could he ignore him? One-on-one is boring. How about this? Me and Bai Weitua will fight 2-on-2. Wasn't it just a drinking competition? Just say it. Lin Yi didn't hold back at all as he exposed their intentions. This made Zhang Duopan and Fan Gonha somewhat uncomfortable. "All right, let's compete in drinking. You said it yourself," Zhang Duopan said, coming up with an idea. Himeiwa and the others looked at him with disdain. No one here was an idiot, and he was smart enough to make it sound like Lin Yi was the one who took the beer. But they all knew very well who brought the beer. "I told you." Lin Yi nodded. Xinyan frowned. He didn't know why Lin Yi was against Fan Gonha. He clearly didn't like him, so there was no need for him to get involved. But now he changed his mind? Xinyan's heart tightened, and she shook her head. If it's a competition of drinking, then let's make it a bet. Otherwise, what's the point of drinking so much? Fan Gonha was a drunkard. 1-on-1. He was afraid that Zhang Duopan would not be able to outdrink Bai Weitua, but it was 2 against 2, so they could complement each other. That was why he was so confident. "What prize?" Bai Weitua asked. "The loser will give up on pursuing Mei Wei and stay away from her." Zhang Duopan said, "If you want to compete in drinking, don't use me as a wager. Who I want to be friends with is not up to you." Himeiwa frowned. She said unhappily. Bai Weitua was secretly grateful. Zhang Duopan and Fan Gonha dared to do this, so they must have the confidence. Himeiwa was their high school classmate, so naturally, she knew how much they could drink. At this moment, Himeiwa's words were obviously for Bai Weitua. How could he not be happy? But Lin Yi felt that it was a pity. Although Himeiwa had good intentions, it was more of a hindrance than a help. Just these two? Looking at the 5 boxes of beer under his feet, Lin Yi curled his lips. If it was white, Lin Yi wouldn't have a problem. Himeiwa's words made Zhang Duopan embarrassed. She was obviously protecting Bai Weitua. Zhang Duopan didn't understand. What was so good about Bai Weitua? Why did Himeiwa protect him? Haha, Maywe, we are just joking. Isn't it boring? Let's add some atmosphere. Jean Duopen laughed and said, let's change the prize. The loser will go to the next room. Kick the door open and curse your mother. How about it? This was obviously harming someone. If there was someone ruthless in the next room, it wouldn't be too much to be beaten up. Jean Duopen's proposal made by Weitua's face change slightly. You are all drunk and you still want to curse? Jean Duopen, can't you do something more realistic? Himeiwa was a little unhappy. Everyone comes out to play and we are happy. Aren't you causing trouble by doing this? This wouldn't work and that wouldn't work. Jean Duopen really couldn't think of a prize to harm by Weitua. If Himeiwa retorted, wouldn't it be even more embarrassing? With that in mind, he said, how about this? By Weitua, what do you guys say? How about this? I suggest that we change the beer to white, and then we compete to see who can drink faster. The slower one will have to take off a piece of clothing. Lin he wanted to stand up for by Weitua, so he just wanted to embarrass the two. Change it to white and see who can drink faster? Jean Duopen frowned. He didn't know why Lin he suddenly suggested this. Lin Yi and Bai Weitua hadn't spoken before, and it was Himeiwa who was protecting them. It was only natural that Jean Duopen thought that Lin Yi and Bai Weitua were afraid of them. But Lin Yi suddenly changed his attitude and suggested a stronger white and a competition to see who could drink faster. This was a little strange. Don't dare to compete? Then forget it. We'll do as you said, you lose. Stay away from Himeiwa and Xingyan from now on. Lin Yi said faintly. Himeiwa looked at Lin Yi, a trace of confusion in her eyes. Xingyan, on the other hand, was a little shy. Lin Yi didn't deny their relationship, so why would Lin Yi stand up for her now that someone was pursuing her? Could it be that he liked her? Xingyan's calm heart rippled a little as she recalled the times he'd helped her out of trouble. Perhaps this was what they called a hero saving a damsel in distress. Too bad the damsel in distress couldn't repay him with her body. Ha, don't dare to compete? What a joke. If Lin Yi hadn't said that, Jean Duopen would have continued to speculate about Lin Yi's true intentions. But Lin Yi's aggressiveness put him at ease. He felt that Lin Yi was purposely trying to scare them into giving up. And so Jean Duopen and Fan Ganha looked at each other, and Fan Ganha said, white wine is good, but if we're going to drink, we should drink the Red Star Ergotu with a higher alcohol content. How about it? Do you dare? The School Beauty's personal expert welcome readers to log in. Read the full article. Target equals _blank. Chapter 1886. By Weitua's face changed, but Lin Yi nodded. Sure. Net. Jean Duopen and Fan Ganha felt even more reassured after seeing Bai Weitua's face. From what they could see, Lin Yi was just being stubborn. Waiter, get me 2 bottles of Red Star Ergotu. Fan Ganha opened the door and called out to the waiter outside. I'm sorry, sir, but we don't sell that kind of alcohol here. The waiter said, embarrassed. If you don't sell it, then go buy 2 bottles for me. With that, Fan Ganha took out 300 kwai and handed it to the waiter. Go, take the rest as a tip. Yes, sir. The waiter was overjoyed. The Red Star Ergotu in the supermarket was only 10 kwai a bottle, and he'd be making 280 kwai this way. The waiter had to pay 50% as a tip, but that was still 140 kwai. It was just an errand, of course, so he was more than happy to do it. Do you want the 56 or 65? The higher the better. Fan Ganha looked at Lin Yi provocatively and said faintly, All right, I'll go right away. The waiter turned and ran off. Fan Ganha had drunk baijiu before, and his alcohol tolerance was pretty good. He hadn't had a 65% baijiu before, but 2 bottles of 40% baijiu wasn't a problem at all. He wasn't afraid of Lin Yi at all. As for speed, he didn't believe that Lin Yi would be faster than a sports student. Net. Xingyan, can you do it or not? Look at how confident your guy is. Don't lose out. He Mei West sat down in Lin Yi's seat and whispered to Xin Yan. What do you mean, my guy? Xin Yan blushed. How would I know if he can drink it or not? But he should be fine. As far as Xin Yan was concerned, Lin Yi wasn't someone who would do something he wasn't confident in. Bai Weitua doesn't look like he can hold his liquor. You don't know, but that Zhang Duopan isn't that good. But that Fan Ganha is a drunkard. He's an excellent student, and he'd go drinking with a bunch of people after training at night. He's already trained to hold his liquor. He Mei Wei was a little worried. Mei Wei, don't tell me you've fallen for Bai Weitua? Wang Xinyan, who had been teased by He Mei Wei all this time, finally found an opportunity to tease her back. Hee, I just feel that his impression is not bad. He's not as exaggerated as Zhang Duopan. He Mei Wei smiled, but she did not hide her thoughts. Wang Xinyan looked at He Mei Wei, a little surprised. She suddenly realized that they were in university now, and it was completely different from high school. Dating was normal now, and even the teachers didn't care about it anymore. Who would be secretive about it? On the other hand, because she was engaged, she hadn't adapted to this environment, and she seemed to be very shy. That's true. Xinyan nodded. Xinyan, just what are you thinking? Do you like Lin Yi? If you don't, I can introduce him to my friends. Don't waste such a good opportunity, He Mei Wei said with a smile. Don't. Xinyan said subconsciously, but realized that she was being too nosy. She might cause He Mei Wei to misunderstand. Xinyan wanted to say that Lin Yi already had a girlfriend, but this was Lin Yi's private business. Xinyan didn't want to say too much, so she kept her mouth shut. Ha, see? You're still interested in him. He Mei Wei laughed, thinking that she knew what Xinyan was thinking. At that moment, the KTV waiter came back with 2 bottles of Red Star Ergotu. Fan Ganha took it and took out 4 disposable paper cups from the cabinet, 1 for each person, and placed them in front of Lin Yi and the others. How do we drink? Zhang Duopen asked. I'll go first. Lin Yi didn't wait for Bai Weitua to speak. This level of liquor was like drinking water to Lin Yi. Lin Yi said as he took a bottle of Red Star Ergotu and poured himself a full cup. I'll accompany you. Your opponent is me. Fan Ganha followed Lin Yi's example and filled his cup. Mei Wei, please be the referee. We'll start when you say start. Lin Yi raised his cup with a smile. But let's make this clear first. Don't let too much out of your mouth, and don't leave too much at the bottom of the cup or you lose. I don't need you to tell me that. I won't go back on my word. Fan Ganha humphed. All right, 3, 2, 1. Start. He Mei Wei saw that Lin Yi was full of confidence and didn't say anything else. How agile was Lin Yi? He was an Earth-class master. As soon as He Mei Wei said the last word, the cup was already in his mouth. He raised his head and poured the liquor into his stomach. Then he put the paper cup on the table. Wow! Bai Weitua He Mei Wei and everyone else looked at Lin Yi in shock. Even Zhang Duopan couldn't help but exclaim. Because Lin Yi was drinking too fast, it was as if he was drinking water. This wasn't drinking at all. Although Fan Ganha also drank fast, Lin Yi put down the paper cup only after everyone exclaimed. He thought that he was fast, and the exclamations were directed at him. So after he put down the cup, he said proudly, How is it? Are you scared? Everyone looked at Fan Ganha strangely. Zhang Duopan blushed. He was annoyed that Fan Ganha was sick. The other person had finished drinking, and he still said this? Fan Ganha was waiting for everyone's praise and the sound of Lin Yi's fear. But after waiting for a long time, he didn't hear anything. He suddenly recovered from his narcissistic state and looked at Lin Yi in surprise. Did you drink? Are your eyes not good? Lin Yi pointed at the empty cup on the table. Ga. Fan Ganha knew that Lin Yi had finished drinking as well, and it seemed that Lin Yi had finished drinking earlier than him. Thinking about what he said before, he suddenly blushed. But he was thick-skinned. Since you finished, let's continue. You haven't taken off your clothes yet. Lin Yi shook his head and said, "Don't tell me you're drunk after 1 cup? You even forgot about the prize?" "Who said so?" Fan Gonha took off his coat. In this autumn, people usually wore 2 coats, a coat and a shirt or t-shirt. So, it didn't affect anything after taking off 1 coat. After taking off his clothes, Fan Gonha filled his cup again and took the initiative to raise it. "This is white wine. If you finish the first cup quickly, your stomach will be empty. If you drink it quickly, you will feel uncomfortable later. Target equals underscore blank." Chapter 1887. "Oh, then drink slowly." Lin Yi nodded and said, "Ahem." Fan Gonha was a little speechless. Did this guy really not understand, or was he pretending not to understand? I was just covering up, and he actually asked me to drink slowly. What's wrong with you? Did you drink too slowly? It's spicy to your throat? Lin Yi asked. Nothing. Fan Gonha was a little speechless. Lin Yi filled the glass. Under Himeyue's command, he poured it again. This time, Fan Gonha didn't dare to delay, but he was still a few seconds slower than Lin Yi. This made him very depressed. "I'm sorry. I was a little thirsty, so I drank too quickly. You have to take off your clothes again," Lin Yi said. At this time, Bai Weitua and the others looked at Lin Yi with a look of admiration. It can't be. Really? Isn't Lin Yi drinking too much? 2 glasses of white wine went down and nothing happened. Fan Gonha's face was a little red. Fan Gonha looked at Lin Yi with some surprise. He really looked down on this guy before. Only now did he know that Lin Yi had been pretending to be a pig, to eat a tiger. From the moment Lin Yi took out the car key, Fan Gonha should have thought that this guy had been pretending all along. In fact, Lin Yi really wasn't pretending because the level of his opponents in his eyes had risen. For people like Zhang Duopan and Fan Gonha, he really didn't put them in his eyes. In fact, Lin Yi's current opponents were all at the level of an Earth Stage Master. If this matter didn't involve Bai Weitua in the dormitory, this boy who had been calling him Big Brother, Lin Yi wouldn't be bothered to drink with these 2 people. "Brother, you have some skills. I didn't notice it." Fan Gonha's eyes flashed a hint of anger. Before Lin Yi spoke, he took off his shirt and revealed his strong muscles. The 3rd glass, the result was still Lin Yi. Fan Gonha's face was a little ugly. His clothes were dragged down. Only the pants were left. However, if he were to take off his pants in front of so many people, he would lose all his face in the future. This put him in a dilemma. Take off your shoes. They count as clothes. Zhang Duopan was not stupid. He immediately found an escape route for Fan Gonha. Shoes don't count as clothes, right? Bai Weitua had found a chance to humiliate the other party, so he naturally wouldn't let it go. If shoes aren't clothes, then pants shouldn't be either. Since I've already taken off all my clothes, I don't need to take them off anymore. After Zhang Duopan finished speaking, he looked at Bai Weitua with a smug expression. He thought to himself, "You little brat, you're still lacking when it comes to scheming against me. I've been called little rascal since I was young, and that's not for nothing." A bottle of ergotu was poured into this disposable paper cup. 1 bottle only had 3 glasses. Therefore, the winner was decided after 3 cups. Fan Gonha was defeated. But to be honest, his alcohol tolerance was not bad. After drinking a bottle of ergotu, his face was a little red, but there was nothing wrong with him. Bai Weitua, it's our turn now. How about it? If you're scared, just admit defeat. Although Lin Yi's ability to drink exceeded Zhang Duopan and Fan Gonha's expectations, Bai Weitua obviously couldn't drink. When he said he wanted to drink beer, his expression changed slightly, let alone white wine. Moreover, Zhang Duopan still had an idea in his mind. "What are you afraid of? Although I can't drink, I'm doing this for love. I'm going all out today." Bai Weitua shrugged his shoulders and stared at Zhang Duopan like a tiger watching its prey. A sense of pride arose, spontaneously. Before this, Lin Yi had already helped him lay the foundation. Even if he lost, it didn't matter. Everyone won one round each, and no one could blame the other. This was also the reason why Bai Weitua dared to challenge. However, he was secretly grateful to Lin Yi. If it weren't for Lin Yi winning the first round, he wouldn't be so bold. Okay, Ganha, you go and ask the waiter to buy 2 more bottles of white wine. I want the one just now. As Zhang Duopan said this, he gave Fan Ganha a look. These 2 people had been together for many years. Zhang Duopan's look was enough for Fan Ganha to understand. Zhang Duopan's alcohol tolerance wasn't good, but in order to win, he naturally had to do something. Fan Ganha had already embarrassed himself. At this time, he naturally put on his coat again. He walked out of the private room and went to find the waiter to buy wine. However, this time, Fan Ganha left for a longer time. In order not to arouse suspicion, Fan Ganha said as soon as he entered the door, "This waiter, I gave him 300 last time. This time I gave him 200 and he wasn't very happy." "Huh. No wonder you were gone for so long. I thought you couldn't find someone to buy wine yourself." Zhang Duopan smiled. These 2 people spoke very naturally, and it didn't arouse anyone's suspicion. However, Lin Yi looked at Fan Ganha with a deep meaning. He felt that it was a bit illogical. Fan Ganha must have spent Zhang Duopan's money. But since he was spending Zhang Duopan's money, did he really need to discuss that 100 kwai with the waiter? "You guys enjoy yourself. I'm going to the washroom," Xinyan said as she walked out of the private room. They waited in the private room for a while, but the waiter still hadn't returned with the wine. Fan Ganha said, "I'll go take a look, see what's taking so long." Fan Ganha walked out of the private room and saw the waiter waiting for him. He quickly walked over and asked, "How is it? Is it done?" "Don't worry, I'll take care of it. Boss, this bottle of ergot has been opened, and I changed it to mineral water according to your request. This bottle is unopened, and it's still white wine," the waiter explained to Fan Ganha. "Not bad, well done." Fan Ganha nodded, satisfied. "It's nothing. The boss gave me such a big tip. If I can't even do something like this, I'd be too embarrassed to take the money," the waiter said. Fan Ganha didn't say anything as he picked up the 2 bottles of ergot and walked into the private room. Wang Xinyan, who had just returned from the washroom, saw this scene. Xinyan frowned as she walked into the private room. She walked to Lin Yi's side and whispered something into his ear. "Don't worry. I'm fine after drinking this little bit of wine. I can drive." Lin Yi winked at Xinyan with a smile. Xinyan paused. She'd told Lin Yi about Fan Ganha's tricks, and Lin Yi's answer was so strange. But Xinyan was smart. She didn't think that Lin Yi didn't hear what she said, and Lin Yi said that because he didn't want Fan Ganha to suspect him. Thinking about how Lin Yi's answer was a little ambiguous, as if she was concerned about him, Xinyan blushed. Under the dim light of the KTV private room, she looked even more beautiful. Fan Ganha was both happy and angry at the same time. Wang Xinyan was actually concerned about Lin Yi. These 2 didn't look like normal friends, no matter how he looked at it. The School Beauty's personal expert welcomed readers to log in. Read the full article. Target equals _blank. Chapter 1888. Wine again. Okay, let's continue. As Lin Yi said this, he pushed the 2 bottles of ergot on the table over. "Ha! This time Bai Weitua and I will drink. I say, Bai Weitua, you won't let him drink for you, right?" When Zhang Duopan saw that Lin Yi still wanted to drink for him, his face changed slightly. His alcohol tolerance wasn't as good as Fan Ganha. Even if he drank water, he didn't have the confidence to win. After all, Lin Yi drank alcohol as fast as he drank water. "Brother Lin, let me do it this time," Bai Weitua said. "Huh. All right, then I'll give it to you." Lin Yi pushed the 2 bottles of white wine over. Seeing that Lin Yi gave up, Zhang Duopan suddenly breathed a sigh of relief. He picked up the ergot in front of him and opened the bottle cap. He thought, "This Zhang Duopan is quite amazing. He replaced the inside with water, and the bottle cap on the outside is still intact. There is no flaw at all. What a talent! If Lin Yi and Bai Wei-tuo were suspicious, they wouldn't be able to see anything wrong. However, although Zhang Duopan thought so, Fan Ganha's face changed. He clearly remembered that the bottle of Ergo-2 near Zhang Duopan should have been opened. It was impossible to be newly opened. Could it be that there was a problem? In contrast, Bai Wei-tuo was a bit puzzled. Why does my bottle of Ergo-2 seem to be opened and closed again? Could it be that I encountered the legendary mixture of a few bottles of leftover wine? But Ergo-2 is very cheap. It's not worth it, right? As he was wondering in his heart, Bai Wei-tuo suddenly felt his feet being kicked twice. When he turned his head, he saw Lin Yi's comforting smile. Bai Wei-tuo's heart brightened. Could it be that Lin Yi did something? Bai Wei-tuo quickly poured the Ergo-2 in front of him into the disposable paper cup, and he found something unusual. Although this Ergo-2 also had the smell of alcohol, it wasn't strong. It was just a faint smell. Could it be Bai Wei-tuo was excited? He didn't know how Lin Yi did it, but Lin Yi must have done something to it. Otherwise, how could he have hinted at her? On the other side, Zhang Duopan also poured some wine, but after he did so, he was dumbfounded. What kind of mineral water was this? It was clearly Ergo-2. The smell of alcohol was strong. Zhang Duopan frowned. Could it be that Fan Ganha didn't understand what he meant? What the hell was this guy doing? But at this moment, he definitely couldn't open his mouth to ask. If he did, wouldn't everyone know that he wanted to cheat? Therefore, he could only bite the bullet and raise his glass. Bai Wei-tuo, come on. This time, Miue will be the judge again. Although the liquor was not changed to water, Zhang Duopan thought that Bai Wei-tuo was definitely not as good as him. Although this bottle of white wine was a bit too much for him, it was still better than Bai Wei-tuo. Sure, come on. Bai Wei-tuo, on the other hand, was full of confidence. If he couldn't beat her in drinking water, he might as well buy a piece of tofu and kill himself. Fan Ganha wanted to say something, but he hesitated for a moment. In the end, he didn't say it because he didn't know what to say. He looked at Bai Wei-tuo's excited look and guessed that his Ergo-2 with mineral water was probably in Bai Wei-tuo's hands. However, Fan Ganha was very puzzled. He clearly put the bottle of mineral water in front of Fan Ganha. But how did it run to Bai Wei-tuo? He didn't understand. The bottle was pushed by Lin Yi at that time, but Lin Yi shouldn't know the hidden story behind it. Moreover, when Lin Yi pushed the bottle, he was also watching closely. How could Lin Yi have the chance to switch? 3, 2, 1, start. Miue had already shouted the slogan. Bai Wei-tuo and Zhang Duopan raised their wine glasses at the same time. Compared to Bai Wei-tuo, who drank the wine in one gulp, Zhang Duopan was in much more pain. He drank the wine several times, but he finally drank it. After drinking it, he looked at the empty wine glass in front of Bai Wei-tuo in shock. You finished drinking? Zhang Duopan looked at Bai Wei-tuo's calm face and hesitated. Yeah, I finished drinking. Bai Wei-tuo smiled, but he was a little guilty. I don't want the other party to find out that I drank mineral water. This is strange. Zhang Duopan thought. Is this Bai Wei-tuo also pretending to be weak? Why does it look like he didn't drink after drinking? However, he couldn't do anything about it. He could only say, Okay, then let's continue. He filled the glass again. There was no doubt that Bai Wei-tuo won. This made Zhang Duopan's face a little bad. He was also bare-chested, but his figure wasn't as good as Fan Ganha's. His bulging belly was exposed. The third glass was naturally Bai Wei-tuo's victory. This time, Zhang Duopan was completely desperate. Why did my strength become my weakness when it came to the other party? Before Fan Ganha lost, he could understand. After all, this method of competition was proposed by Lin Yi. Without confidence, Lin Yi wouldn't have proposed this method of competition. However, Bai Wei-tuo's worried expression was seen by Zhang Duopan. Could it be? Zhang Duopan picked up Bai Weitua's wine bottle. Although the remaining wine wasn't enough to fill a glass, there was still enough left. Zhang Duopan directly poured it into his own glass. He picked it up and smelled it. Suddenly, he revealed a look of realization. Bai Weitua was shocked. He cheated, and Zhang Duopan caught him in the act. Wouldn't he may well look down on him? If he lost, it was because he wasn't strong enough. But cheating was another matter. Just as Bai Weitua was very nervous, afraid that Zhang Duopan would reveal the truth, Zhang Duopan put the wine bottle on the table with a gloomy face. He said indifferently, "Brother Bai is really courageous. I admire you. I concede defeat." Oh. Bai Weitua looked at Zhang Duopan in confusion. What's wrong with this guy? Why didn't he expose me? He didn't see it? In fact, it wasn't that Zhang Duopan didn't want to expose him, but he couldn't. This wine was Fan Ganha's doing. Even if he exposed it, it would mean that Bai Weitua cheated. He would be the one who wanted to cheat first. At that time, he may well would look down on him even more. So no matter what, Zhang Duopan could only pinch his nose and admit defeat. Xinyan covered her mouth with a smile. Lin Yi didn't disappoint her. She knew from the train that Lin Yi was very skillful, or the scammer's money wouldn't have ended up in Lin Yi's pocket. This time, Lin Yi must have used the same trick, swapping the bottle of Ergotu in front of Bai Weitua without anyone noticing. Bai Weitua didn't think that he'd win just like that. Yes, it really was a mystery. The School Beauty's personal expert welcomed readers to log in. Read the full article. Target equals _blank. Chapter 1889. Bai Weitua thought that if he had known this, he would have made the bet with Zhang Duopan. Whoever lost had to stay away from Himei. Okay, let's continue. The competition is over. Zhang Duopan, do you understand now? There's always someone stronger than you, and there's always someone stronger than you. Himei looked at Zhang Duopan's defeated look and shook her head helplessly. She hated Zhang Duopan's arrogant attitude the most. She felt good that he was defeated. Zhang Duopan's face darkened. He was unconvinced. Yes, he lost unjustly. He could have won, but Fan Ganha ruined it. He didn't know that it was Lin Yi's trick. If he knew, he wouldn't be so angry. But now he thought that he accidentally messed it up, so he was very depressed. When he heard Himei say this, he felt that he couldn't lose face in front of Bai Weitua, so he straightened his neck and said, "Let's do it this way. Drinking is just a small thing. It's not a serious competition. If you want to compete, let's have a big competition." Oh, how? Bai Weitua won the drinking competition, so he was full of confidence. At this time, he naturally wouldn't be weak. How about this? During the freshman party, we'll each put up a performance. Whoever's performance gets the highest ranking wins, and the loser will voluntarily give up on Meiwe. What do you think? Zhang Duopan risked being scolded by Himei and used her as a wager again. Of course, he had a reason for doing this. Bai Weitua had just won, and now his ego was inflated. If he made such a request again, Bai Weitua might be hot-headed and agree. At that time, even if Himei said something, it would be useless. A man should not go back on his words. Zhang Duopan had more reason to push him, although Bai Weitua drank water. In order to make it more realistic, Fan Ganha asked the waiter to leave some wine in the bottle. This was nothing to Zhang Duopan, but Bai Weitua was a little drunk. Hearing Zhang Duopan's words, he immediately said boldly, "Okay, let's compete. Who's afraid of who?" Bai Weitua had some confidence in his singing. Otherwise, he wouldn't be singing duets with Himei as soon as he arrived, because this was his strength. He always went on stage during the school's art festival. He had won first place in the solo competition before, so he wasn't afraid of Zhang Duopan at all. Good, a gentleman's word. Zhang Duopan was overjoyed and quickly said, "I won't take back my words." Bai Weitua said, "That's a good idea. I'm talking about each of us coming up with a program. I'm not talking about going on stage, personally. In other words, As long as I'm the one who planned and participated in this program, it's fine. Zhang Duopan looked at Bai Weitua proudly. Wasn't this guy full of confidence? He didn't mind giving him a blow to lower his morale. So what? Bai Weitua also knew that Zhang Duopan was playing a word game. One person coming up with a show and one person performing a show were two different things. Coming up with a show could be a show that everyone completed together. As long as he participated, it would be fine. But one person performing, it would be one person. However, Bai Weitua couldn't take back his words, so he could only bite the bullet and say it. Okay, Meiwe, this time he volunteered. And it's not like I'm hurting him. Brother Bai's voice is not bad. Maybe he can really get a good result? Zhang Duopan said with a smile. Meiwe shook her head. She wanted to say something, but it was indeed too late. At this time, the two people were already facing each other. If Meiwe said anything, it would be a bit unreasonable. One was an old classmate, and the other was a new classmate with a good impression. If Meiwe hated the two to the extreme, she would definitely stop them. However, the key problem was that Meiwe didn't hate them, so she let them do whatever they wanted. Don't look at me. I'm not interested in gambling with you. Lin Yi looked at Fan Ganha and said faintly, I'm drinking with you because of Bai Weitua. Fan Ganha was annoyed. This Lin Yi didn't put him in his eyes. He was completely ignoring him. Fan Ganha was thinking about whether or not he should find a chance to mess with Lin Yi and show him how strong he was. All right. Let's sing. Meiwe didn't want to waste any more time. She still had things to do tomorrow, and the military training was starting the day after. There was some unpleasantness between them, but Meiwe's voice was really good. Bai Weitua and Zhang Duopan were in unison, praising Meiwe. At night, Lin Yi drove his roommates and Xinyan back to school. Zhang Duopan and Fan Ganha, on the other hand, had to take a taxi back. Boss, how did you do it? You replaced that ergo-2 with plain water? Bai Weitua said excitedly, but then remembered that Meiwe was still sitting in the back. He felt a little embarrassed. Meiwe, you drank water? Meiwe was a little surprised. I didn't switch the water, Fan Ganha did. Lin Yi said. Xinyan overheard the conversation between Fan Ganha and the waiter when she went to the washroom. So I switched it for you secretly. That water was meant for Zhang Duopan. No wonder. Meiwe realized. Lin Yi had been sitting in the room the whole time, and no matter how powerful he was, there was no way he could have switched the liquor in the ergo-2 with water in front of everyone. But it was possible that he'd secretly switched the two bottles. I was wondering, so it was their own doing. No wonder Zhang Duopan didn't say anything when he sniffed the liquor in my glass, and then didn't say anything. He just looked like he was eating shit. He was the one who got the short end of the stick. Bai Weitua laughed heartily. You're amazing, big bro Lin. You did it without anyone noticing. It's just a small trick, Lin Yi said faintly. Xinyan, on the other hand, smiled faintly. She'd known all along that Lin Yi was capable of this. Didn't he steal all the money from those scammers on the train? When they arrived at school, Lin Yi and the others sent Xinyan Meiwe and Chai Xiaoling back to their dorms before heading back to the boys' dorm. However, they bumped into the Miss and Shu in front of the girls' dorm. Lin Yi was walking shoulder to shoulder with Xinyan when he saw Meng Yao. He froze. Xinyan was a little startled. She didn't know what these two pretty girls were up to, but she could tell that they were looking at her with hostility. Xinyan didn't know what she'd done to offend them. Or were they here for Lin Yi? The school beauty's personal expert welcomed readers to log in. Read the full article. Target equals _blank. Chapter 1890. Meng Yao and Yushu naturally had an impression of Xinyan. It was the first time they went shopping with Lin Yi, and Lin Yi stood up for this pretty girl. That pissed off both Meng Yao and Yushu. Xinyan might not have anything to do with Lin Yi, but they didn't have a good impression of this girl. But other than Lin Yi, Bai Weitua, Zhao Xingji, and Song Xiaodao were all wide-eyed. Where did these two school beauties come from? And why did it seem like they had some sort of grudge against Lin Yi and Xinyan? Lin Yi, Meng Yao said faintly as she looked at Xinyan. I'm done here, let's go home. Xinyan looked at Meng Yao, a little surprised. Wasn't Lin Yi's girlfriend Xiao Xiao? Why did Meng Yao sound like she was living with Lin Yi? Could it be that Lin Yi changed girlfriends? No wonder Meng Yao's eyes were so unfriendly. So it was because he was with Lin Yi? I'll be on my way. Xinyan smiled faintly as she nodded to Lin Yi and left. Lin Yi smiled bitterly. He didn't think that the miss would say something so flirtatious in front of everyone. Back in high school, the miss didn't want people to know that he was living with her. But now that they were in university, she was telling everyone about it. Let's go. Lin Yi shrugged helplessly. Bai Weitua and the others were dumbfounded. So this was Lin Yi's girlfriend? Then Xinyan Himeiwa frowned as she looked at Lin Yi and then at Xinyan, who was walking away. She couldn't see anything wrong. Wang Xinyan was still as calm as ever, as if what was happening in front of her had nothing to do with her. This confused Himeiwa. Was there really nothing going on between Wang Xinyan and Lin Yi? Lin Yi and Bai Weitua waved their hands and walked towards the parking lot with Miss and Shu. No way. We've all misunderstood? Bai Weitua's eyes widened in disbelief. Living together? No wonder boss didn't come back last night. Song Xiaodao enviously said. Xinyan, is there really nothing going on between you and Linny? Himeiwa pulled on Xinyan's arm. Xinyan shrugged, a bitter smile on her face. We're just friends. Okay, I believe you this time. Himeiwa finally nodded. But I always feel that the two of you are a little ambiguous. It's really pure. Xinyan joked. Lin Yi, Meng Yao, and Yushu came to the parking lot together. Surprisingly, the miss didn't mention Xinyan anymore. Instead, she talked about something else. Military, training the day after tomorrow. Bring me and Shu some first aid medicine, the kind that heals external injuries and detoxifies. Meng Yao said, there will be field training, and I'm worried that something might happen without you around. Okay, but call me if there's any trouble. Lin Yi nodded. Every faculty has a different time, so we probably won't run into each other. Meng Yao said, plus, Shu and I want to train ourselves. We can't rely on you for everything. You'll leave us sooner or later. Yeah, Shield bro flirts with girls all the time. He doesn't talk to us anymore. Yushu nodded, feeling wronged. So you two are still unhappy about Wang Xinyan? Lin Yi smiled bitterly. There's nothing going on between me and her. Didn't I tell you guys? I took the same train with her when I first came to Songshan. She's kind, so we got to know each other. I know, I didn't say anything. Meng Yao said faintly. But you're doing this to Xiao Xiao. We don't think it's a good idea. Xiao Xiao. Lin Yi frowned at the mention of Xiao Xiao. This wasn't the first time he had this weird feeling. Thinking about Xiao Xiao made Lin Yi feel like he had a girlfriend. Right, Xiao Xiao? She's my second wife. Am I right? Meng Yao and Yushu looked at each other. They didn't know how to answer, but Yushu nodded. Yeah, why? Then, here's the problem. If she's the second wife, then who's the main wife? Lin Yi asked. As expected, here's the problem. The miss frowned. She knew that this wouldn't be solved so easily. There were still some flaws in this medicine. If it was Tang Yin who stayed in Snowy Valley and focused on training, there wouldn't be so many problems. But the problem was that Lin Yi had gone back to his old life. There were some things in his life that reminded him of his memories. It wasn't as simple as just forgetting about Tang Yin. Lin Yi might not be able to remember what he couldn't see. But what about what he could see? Meng Yao and Yushu looked at each other bitterly, not knowing how to explain. It seemed like Lin Yi didn't forget that Xiao Xiao was his second wife. Actually, Yao Yao is your main wife, Yushu said seriously. Lin Yi was speechless. He didn't believe Shu. Don't listen to Shu's nonsense. I'm hungry, let's go. Meng Yao interrupted, changing the topic for now. When they got home, Grandma's son was busy preparing dinner. Meng Yao, on the other hand, pulled Shu upstairs. Lin Yi didn't ask much. The two were always like this at home. Lin Yi used this time to go out and buy medicine. There were injury medicines, but there weren't that many antidotes. Lin Yi had some with him, and after giving it to Meng Yao and the others, Lin Yi didn't have any left. Naturally, he had to make some more. Meng Yao and Yushu went upstairs. The Miss face was very serious. Shu, Lin Yi seems to have remembered something. What do we do? Yeah, I think so too. Shield Bro seems to have remembered something, but he doesn't remember anything related to Union Sis. He remembers everything else very clearly. I can't even lie to him that you're the main wife, because he remembers that you're not. Yushu said bitterly. That's right. I can see it too. It doesn't matter if it's you, me, or anyone else. As long as you're with Tang Yin, it's all gone. But the side effects are very obvious as well. It'll cause memory gaps. Meng Yao frowned. What should we do? If we tell the truth, then we'll waste Yun Yun's efforts. But if we don't, Lin Yi will only get more and more suspicious. The School Beauty's personal expert welcome readers to log in. Read the whole thing. Target =_blank. Chapter 1891. It'd be great if we could get in touch with Xiao Xiao. We'll be able to think of something if we're together, Yushu said. Yeah, you two have the most ideas. Meng Yao nodded. Speak of the devil and he'll appear. Sometimes reality was just that coincidental, Snowy Valley. Tang Yan's parents had been here for a while. Tang Juqing didn't have much of a problem. The ice palace was beautiful, and he could live like a hermit with his wife and daughter. He didn't have to work hard, and he didn't have to worry about food and clothing. Everything was taken care of by the Snowy Valley. It was just that he wasn't used to having food and clothes at his fingertips. Xiao Ming was also a quiet person. Every day, other than cultivating the mental cultivation technique of the Snow Valley with Mother Tang, she lived a quiet life. She was already used to being neglected in the Tang family, compared to here, where she could walk around freely and see her sister, brother-in-law, and daughter. This was like heaven. But Madame Tang's arrival had brought disaster upon the Snowy Valley. The venerable elder had always thought that she was a snobbish person after practicing heartless tactics. But after meeting Mrs. Tang, she finally understood what snobbery and greed were. Compared to her, Mrs. Tang paled in comparison. Reporting to Elder Zhang on duty, the disciples of the Snowy Valley found 1,000-year snow lotus. A disciple cupped his fist. Ah, 1,000-year snow lotus. Yunyan, isn't that precious? Let's leave it for Lin Yi. Lin Yi is a practitioner too, but he doesn't have that many treasures. We should leave all the good stuff for him. Mrs. Tang was even better than the pig. Whenever the Snowy Valley found something good, she would always bring Tang Yin to the scene. A few black lines appeared on the Grand Elder's forehead. It had only been a few days, and Mrs. Tang had taken over half of the good stuff they found. How were they supposed to live in the future? They weren't familiar with the Snowy Valley now. By the time they got to know each other better, wouldn't Mother Tang have already ransacked the entire Snow Valley's treasury? Mom, you've already saved a lot of good stuff for Lin. Tang Yin said helplessly, I'm not afraid of having too many good stuff. I want this snow lotus, Mrs. Tang said to Elder Zhang arrogantly. Yes, Mrs. Tang. Elder Zhang's forehead was covered in cold sweat. However, even the Grand Elder couldn't do anything about it. How could Elder Zhang stop Mrs. Tang? Mrs. Tang's pet phrase was, if you don't want to give it to me, fine, I'll take my daughter and leave. Go back to find Lin Yi, get married, and have children. Inheritance my ass. If you have the ability, why don't you kill us? Therefore, the great elder did not do anything to her at all. The great elder had never seen such a snobbish and shameless person in his life. This was simply turning hostile. If things did not go his way, he would threaten to leave, and the grand elder could only let him do as he pleased. After all, Shui Gu didn't have anything to threaten Tang Yin with now, and Lin Yi's qi deviation had been cured. If Tang Yin insisted on leaving, Shui Gu couldn't do anything about it. It wasn't easy to find an inheritor. They couldn't really kill her, could they? And Mrs. Tang was Tang Yin's mother, and they couldn't offend her. If they offended her, Tang Yin wouldn't cultivate properly, and the one who would suffer in the end would be Shui Gu. Moreover, Mrs. Tang wasn't Tang Yin's biological mother, but an adoptive mother, and Mrs. Tang's real daughter was Bing Tang. If they really killed her, wouldn't that girl Bing Tang explode in anger and turn Shui Gu upside down? One had to know that Bing Tang wasn't weaker than the great elder, and Bing Tang's cultivation method was obviously better than the great elder's. Even the great elder didn't have the confidence to win against her. The grand elder was filled with hatred. Before Mrs. Tang came, he was the one who threatened Tang Yin. In order to cure Lin Yi, Tang Yin had no choice but to compromise. But when Mrs. Tang came, the situation was completely reversed. Mrs. Tang had become the grand elder who threatened everyone. Fortunately, Shui Gu was a big family and didn't lack these things. Mrs. Tang wasn't a greedy person, and she would at least leave half of it for Shui Gu. This made the great elder feel better. However, as greedy as Mrs. Tang was, she treated her own people well, especially Lin Yi. Once she decided on him as her son-in-law. Even if Tang Yin's status was high now, she didn't have the slightest intention of letting Tang Yin climb up the ladder. In comparison, it was better than the great elder's heartless snobbishness. Mom, that's enough. Tang Yin felt helpless towards her mother. The two mothers' personalities were completely different. What do you mean, that's enough? I'll go to the Ice Palace tomorrow and ask Bing Tang for more stuff. Doesn't she want to be Lin Yi's little wife? If she doesn't show some sincerity, I won't be on her side. Mrs. Tang said. Uft. Cough, cough. The great elder almost choked to death at Mrs. Tang's words. It wasn't just their family that was going to suffer, but the Ice Palace was going to suffer as well. But this made the great elder very happy. Thinking about how Bing Tang was going to suffer as well, she felt that it was nothing for Shui Gu to suffer a bit. Huh. Tang Yun sighed to herself. She didn't tell her mother about Lin Yi's situation, so she didn't know that Lin Yi had already forgotten about her. Tang Yin didn't want her mother to worry, so she kept it a secret. But hearing that her mother was going to the Ice Palace made her feel uneasy. Xiao Xiao probably didn't know about Lin Yi's situation yet, and if her mother really went to the Ice Palace and Xiao Xiao contacted Lin Yi, wouldn't her efforts be wasted? Tang Yin knew that her mother was probably just saying it casually, and the chances of her going to the Ice Palace was close to zero, but she didn't want to take the risk. As she practiced heartless arts, the coldness around Tang Yin became thicker and thicker, and she had a cold and emotionless aura around her, making people feel like they couldn't get close to her. Only people who practiced the same element would be less affected, and Lin Yi practiced an extreme yang element, so there was no chance of him being with her. Tang Yin finally understood why heartless arts was called heartless arts. Only a person who was disheartened and wanted to forget his feelings would create such a mental cultivation method and mnemonic chant. Tang Yin didn't feel anything wrong at first, but as her strength increased, every time she thought of Lin Yi, the sweetness of the past, she'd feel as if her heart was being cut by an ice knife. It was like blood was dripping, and the pain was unbearable. Tang Yin knew that this might be the result of not taking the senseless grass's medicinal liquid. The School Beauty's personal expert welcome readers to log in. Read the full article. Target equals _blank. Chapter 1892. Right now, she was only at the peak of the early phase of golden class, and it was already so unbearable. The path ahead would only be more painful. Plus, this was a situation where Tang Yin had accepted the inheritance before training. If she wasn't an inheritor, it would be even more painful to break through the barrier during training. It was practically a torture for a person. But even without the barrier, it was still very painful for Tang Yin to train. However, she didn't tell anyone about her pain, not even her mother or the Grand Elder, because she knew that this was her own choice, and it was the choice she had made. Every time she finished her training, she would think about how she would become a master, someone who could stand shoulder to shoulder with Linny. She would feel happiness from the bottom of her heart. I can be as strong as you. I can be your helper. Although it's impossible in reality, but in my dreams I will fight alongside you. I won't be your burden anymore. I'll be your pride. When the ancient sects communicated with each other, they still maintained the ancient tradition of writing letters. But when it came to important matters, they had the newest high-tech communication method, satellite phones. There was no cell signal in the inner sect of the Snowy Valley, and there were no landlines either. But satellite phones were unimpeded. Of course, only when an elder or a sect leader had something important to discuss would they use the satellite phone. Sister Shui, can I use the satellite phone in the valley? Tang Yin found Sydney, wanting to borrow the phone to call Xiao Xiao. She was afraid that her mother would mess things up first. Satellite phone? You want to call? Shui Li looked at Tang Yin strangely. Tang Yin's parents were already here. Who was Tang Yin calling? I want to call Xiao Xiao, Tang Yin said. Xiao Xiao, you mean the Ice Palace? Sydney's expression tensed up. The Snowy Valley hadn't told the Ice Palace about finding an inheritor yet. They wanted to show off after Tang Yin became a sky class. That would be shocking. After all, Tang Yin trained after receiving the inheritance. Compared to Feng Xiaoxiao's inheritance, it was much faster because Tang Yin didn't have the barrier of a practitioner's level. It wasn't that her path of cultivation would be smooth sailing, but Feng Xiaoxiao's inheritance was much faster. But at least it was rain or shine. So when the Snow Valley suddenly took out an inheritor with the strength of a peak late-stage heaven stage, it would naturally be more shocking than now. He didn't think that Tang Yin would call him right now, but Sydney thought about it carefully. With the relationship between Tang Yin, Xiao Xiao, and Bingtang, this matter couldn't be hidden for long. After all, Bingtang's birth mother lived in the Snow Valley. It was possible to hide it for a while, but it would be difficult to hide it for a long time. Plus, Mrs. Tang had said that she went to the Ice Palace today and took all the treasures for Lin Yi. How could she not talk about Tang Yin's situation? Compared to that, he might as well go and shock the little girl, Bingtang, and let her know that the Snow Valley also had an inheritor. Yes, it's her, Lin Yi's concubine. Tang Yin smiled. Sydney frowned. She didn't know how good Lin Yi was. Why did so many people like him? But this was other people's business, and Sydney couldn't say much. She just said, Okay, Tang Yin's sister, I will discuss it with the Grand Elder, but it should be fine. Yes, thank you. Tang Yin nodded. No need to thank me. You are the future Grand Elder. In the Snow Valley, your position is not lower than mine. You are welcome. Sydney shook her head. At first, she treated Tang Yin well because Tang Yin brought benefits to the Snow Valley. But as they got to know each other, Sydney found that Tang Yin was a person who was easy to get along with. At least she didn't have any arrogance because she was an inheritor. In fact, with Tang Yin's status in the Snow Valley, even if her words did not carry enormous weight, she could at least override Shui Li's authority. However, Tang Yin did not do so. She was still polite to Shui Li without a trace of arrogance. Why don't we go together? Tang Yin was a little impatient. She was afraid that her mother would call Bingtang first, and Xiao Xiao would contact Lin Yi. That would be a big deal. One had to know that Mrs. Tang wouldn't listen to others. If she wanted to make a call, even the Grand Elder couldn't stop her. Although everyone knew that she was just saying that she would take Tang Yin away, no one dared to provoke her. Okay. Sydney said. Then let's go together. When they arrived at the Great Elder's room, Xue Li briefly explained Tang Yun's idea to the Great Elder. The Great Elder nodded without hesitation and said, "All right, Xue Li, give Bingting a call first and show the power of our Snow Valley. Then let Yunyan talk to Xiao Xiao." Okay. Sydney was also angry. Last time, she was rejected by Bingtang. This time, she wanted to show Bingtang that the Snow Valley could find an inheritor even without the help of the Ice Palace. The satellite phone of the ancient sects wouldn't be used easily. Once it was used, it would be a big deal. The phone was brought to Bingtang, and Qing said, "Palace Master, there's a satellite phone." Bingtang nodded and picked up the phone. "Hello, I'm Bingtang. The people who could use this phone were the heads or elders of the ancient houses and sections." So when Bingtang picked up the phone, she didn't show any disrespect or arrogance. After all, the people on the other side were on the same level as her. "Sect leader, I am Xue Li," Xue Li said straightforwardly. "So it's the Snow Valley Master. What do you want?" Bingtang was curious. She had just rejected Sydney not long ago. Why was she calling again? Hee, it's nothing. "I just wanted to tell you that the Snow Valley has an inheritor, and she has already comprehended the power of the Snow Valley's inheritance." Xue Li's tone was calm, but everyone could hear the pride in her voice. "What? There's an inheritor? And he learned the inheritance?" Bingtang's eyes widened in shock. The Snow Valley finding an inheritor was already a great thing, but to learn the inheritor, that was a very difficult thing to do. Even Xiao Xiao and Bingtang couldn't guarantee that they'd be able to accept the inheritor. After all, the inheritance was about understanding the power of the heavens and earth. It depended on luck and coincidence. It wasn't guaranteed to succeed. "Yes, sorry, but our Snow Valley was a step ahead of you." Sydney smiled. "Palace Master Bing, thank you for rejecting me last time. Otherwise, we might have wasted a talent." The School Beauty's personal expert welcome readers to log in. Read the full article. Target equals _ blank. Chapter 1893. Sydney was speaking the truth. If Bingtang had agreed to Sydney's suggestion, then Sydney and the Grand Elder would have been so happy that they would have given the fruit to Tang Yun and let them leave. There wouldn't be any inheritance then. But these words sounded like sarcasm to Bingtang. Bingtang humphed. "Then I'll have to congratulate you. Congratulations to your Snowy Valley. You'll be the guest of honor there, going to Heaven Class Island together. Haha, but we really have to thank you for this. In the future, our Snowy Valley and Ice Palace will be even closer." Sydney said, "What do you mean?" Bingtang frowned, not understanding what Sydney meant. Snowy Valley and Ice Palace used to be one family thousands of years ago. They both originated from that place, but the two sects fought and supported each other. To say that they were closer was a bit strange. "Our Xue Gu's future Supreme Elder will be your younger sister, cousin and cousin. That's almost the same as your biological sister. Don't you think it's closer than ever?" Xue Li said proudly. Xue Gu finally had a chance to vent his anger. Naturally, Xue Li would not let it go. "You mean Tang Yun?" Bingtang paused and immediately thought of Tang Yun, but she was a bit doubtful. How did Tang Yun become the inheritor? Her body? That's right. We have to thank your Ice Palace for leaving such a talent to our Snowy Valley. Sydney smiled. "As far as I know, her body isn't anything special." Bingtang paused as she thought of something. Could it be the legendary hidden ice heart jade bone body? That's right, Sydney said. It is the rare hidden ice heart jade bone body. It's the same as our Grand Elder. She directly opened the inheritance in the Snowy Valley. Why did she go to the Snowy Valley? Bingtang was curious. Although the Ice Palace had their own information channels, they didn't find out that Tang Yin stayed in the Snowy Valley. Of course, this was a secret. After Lin, he came back. No one mentioned Tang Yin again. The Ice Palace naturally wouldn't know the real reason. I'll let little sister Tang tell you the details. Sydney let out a sigh of relief. Naturally, she didn't want to explain the reason. It was better for Tang Yin to explain. With that, Sydney handed the phone to Tang Yin. Bing Tang, sis. Tang Yin took the phone. Yun Yin, it's really you. Rock Candy took a deep breath in disbelief. But the truth was right in front of her eyes. She had no choice but to believe it. Tang Yin actually had the hidden heart of ice and jade bones. It was even stronger than his fake ice heart jade bone physique. However, it could only be discovered in a place like the Snow Valley. In the Ice Palace, it would probably never be discovered, not to mention accepting the inheritance. Yes. Bingtang, sis, I stayed in the Snow Valley. Tang Yin told Bingtang everything that happened during this period of time, so that's how it is. No wonder you could accept the inheritance under such circumstances. Rock Candy said, but Lin? Never mind, you talk to Xiao Xiao. Rock Candy didn't want to say anything about Lin Yi and Tang Yin. She didn't expect that Tang Yin would make such a sacrifice, giving the forgetfulness herb to Lin Yi and letting her face the pain of yearning alone. This wasn't something a normal person could do. Xiao Xiao heard that it was a call from Tang Yin and ran over, taking the phone from Tang Tang's hands excitedly. Tang Yin, sis. Xiao Xiao. Hearing this familiar voice, Tang Yin's heart warmed. Tang Yin's heart warmed. It feels so good to be able to hear your voice again. Yes, Tang Yin, sis, I'm good now. When I become a sky class, we'll go back and play 3P with Lin Yi, honey. Xiao Xiao said excitedly. Rock Candy, on the other hand, was speechless. Qing smiled but didn't say anything. Tang Yin, on the other hand, couldn't help but cry after hearing this. If it were before, she would be really shy when she heard Xiao Xiao say this, but now, Xiao Xiao's suggestion was a distant dream. Even if Tang Yin wanted to and agreed to it, it was impossible. Xiao Xiao, listen to me. I might not be able to be with you guys anymore. Tang Yin said sadly. Ah, Tang Yin, sis, what's wrong? Xiao Xiao paused and asked. Tang Yin smiled bitterly and told Xiao Xiao what she said to Rock Candy. Ah. Xiao Xiao cried out in shock. You're saying that you gave Lin Yi's husband the forgetfulness herb? Doesn't that mean he won't remember you anymore? How are we going to do 3P then? Huh. You go play with Yao Yao and Shu. I'm afraid that when my heartless arts reaches its peak, you guys won't like me anymore. Tang Yin said, helplessly and sadly, who would like someone with a cold aura around them, someone who made people want to stay away from them. Tang Yin, sis, is there really no other way? Xiao Xiao started to feel sad as well. No, unless my heart doesn't change, and Lin, he doesn't hate me, or maybe he's not afraid of this cold aura that makes people want to stay away from me. Then maybe there's a chance. Tang Yin was just saying it casually, because she knew that the possibility was too small. Then, doesn't that mean that I can't do it? I'm training in the ice element too. Xiao Xiao said, shocked. We're different, the merciless arts. It can make people emotionless, not just Lin Yi, maybe it's the same for me. Tang Yin smiled bitterly. I heard that you can't have love in the later stages of the merciless arts. Otherwise, it'll be useless. I see. Xiao Xiao was very sad and sympathetic. Then, what should I do now? Xiao Xiao, what you need to do now is to work with me and make Lin Yi forget me. That's the biggest help and comfort for me. Tang Yin said, if I make Lin Yi remember me, I really don't know if he'll come to Snowy Valley again and forcefully take me away. That won't do either of us any good, and he won't be able to fight against the ancient sects, and I don't want to go back on my words. This is something I promised Snowy Valley of my own accord, the Grand Elder and Sydney relaxed after hearing Tang Yin's words. They'd been scared to death by Mrs. Tang these days, afraid that she'd take Tang Yin away in a fit of anger, and that'd be a huge loss for Snowy Valley. But now that they knew Tang Yin's feelings, they were relieved. The School Beauty's personal expert welcomed readers to log in. Read the whole thing. Target equals underscore blank. Chapter 1894. Resolutely givupus for Mrs. Tang. She could take whatever she wanted. Snowy Valley had a strong foundation, and she wasn't an outsider anymore. As long as Tang Yin really became the Grand Elder of Snowy Valley, then Tang Yin would have a part of everything. Oh, I see. Xiao Xiao didn't really want to, but she knew that if she told Lin Yi the truth, she'd be harming Lin Yi and Tang Yin. With Lin Yi's personality, he might really do something out of line. Thinking back to when Lin Yi brought her to the Ice Palace, he wouldn't budge an inch in front of Bingtang, even bringing up the 2-year agreement. How could Lin Yi just let Tang Yin go like that? Yeah, I've talked to Yao Yao and Shu already. You guys, help me take care of him. Perhaps one day we'll meet again, but at that time, I'll be watching you guys from the back, wishing you all the best. Tang Yin said. Man. Xiao Xiao shook her head helplessly and didn't say anything else. It was hard for her, but this was Tang Yin's decision. She knew that this might be the best solution for Lin Yi and Tang Yin. Don't worry. I'll get in touch with Yao Yao and Shu and help you hide it. Okay, thank you, Xiao Xiao. Tang Yin said sincerely. What are you thanking me for? I should be thanking you. If it weren't for your tolerance, I wouldn't be the Xiao Xiao I am now, Xiao Xiao said emotionally. If I wasn't Lin Yi's husband's mistress, I wouldn't be in the Ice Palace. We're family, so let's not talk like that. I can't contact Lin Yi anymore, but I can still contact you. If there's any news about Lin Yi, remember to tell me. Tang Yin said. Okay. Xiao Xiao nodded quickly. I will. I'll call Tang Yin sis first. Okay. That's all for now. We'll keep in touch. Tang Yin said. After hanging up, Tang Yin silently returned the satellite phone to the Grand Elder. Ah, this is your decision. I can't stop you. But, Tang Yin, tell me, are you really ready? The Grand Elder took over the phone and asked with a serious expression. Yes, I'm ready. Tang Yin nodded heavily. Even if the path of cultivation is full of obstacles and thorns, I will face it calmly, because he is in my heart. As long as I think of him, I will have the courage to face all difficulties. Since you have chosen to walk down this path, then persevere. The Great Elder nodded. This is just the beginning. The future will be even more difficult. But I believe that you will walk down this path, because you are the second person who has a hidden heart of ice and jade bones since the founding of the Snow Valley. Perhaps with your body type, you do not need the medicinal liquid of the senseless grass, because you are right, the founder did not consume the medicinal liquid of the senseless grass. Thank you, Grand Elder. Tang Yin was pleasantly surprised when she heard the Grand Elder say that she didn't need to let go of her feelings anymore. No need to thank me. You chose your own path. The Grand Elder shook his head. But there is something I have to remind you in advance. Please speak, Grand Elder. Tang Yin said, although the Heartless spell was created by the founder of the sect, she did not cultivate it to the 10th level. She was stuck at the peak of the 9th level for her entire life. The Great Elder said, perhaps this is also the reason why she did not take the senseless herb's medicinal liquid. Ah! Tang Yin paused. This Heartless Arts was created by the founder, but she did not reach the 10th level. Tang Yin just couldn't believe it. A person created an incantation, but she didn't practice it to perfection. How did she create it? The founder was a person with great wisdom and power. You can't use common sense to judge her, the Grand Elder said. The Grand Elder said, actually, it's the same logic as alchemists. Some people are very familiar with medicinal properties and can change the pill formula at will. But if you really ask him to refine the pill, he can't refine it. Could it be that the Grand Elder is talking about armchair strategists? Tang Yin asked, stunned. You could say that, but the founder wasn't an armchair strategist. If this Heartless Arts was trained to the 10th level, it would be a heaven-defying skill. The Grand Elder said seriously, turning water into ice, turning ice into mist. All it takes is a thought. You can use the power of heaven and earth as you wish. If you train it to perfection, one water inheritor is enough. You don't even need 3. Plus, you'll be more confident when you do that thing, Sky-class island. Tang Yan's face changed. She knew from Lin Yi what Xiao Xiao had to do as an inheritor, but she didn't know the details, only the general idea. That's right, it's Sky-class island. The Grand Elder said, if you train to the 10th level, you'll have more confidence in opening Sky-class island. At least with the water element, Sky-class island. What is it? How do I open it? Tang Yin asked. I don't know. The Grand Elder shook her head. That's news from that place. They didn't say the specifics, and I only have a general idea. Maybe you'll know when you become a Sky-class late-phase peak. That place. Tang Yin paused. She didn't know what the Grand Elder was talking about. You'll get your answer in the Sky-class meeting. The Grand Elder said, if you haven't broken through by the 9th level peak, then you can consider whether or not you want to use the forgetful grass. So you're saying that even if I don't use the forgetful grass, it won't affect me much? Tang Yun asked. That's right. There's Xiao Xiao from the Ice Palace in that place. I heard that they've already prepared a water element inheritor. We have water, mist, and ice elements, and the 9th level peak is enough. The Grand Elder said regretfully, but the power of the 10th level is something you can't imagine. If you really make it to the 10th level, even if you don't surpass Sky Class, you'll at least become the number 1 in Sky Class, the number 1 in the world. Ah, the power of heartless arts shocked Tang Yin. If she really made it to the 10th level, then she'd become Lin Yi's biggest helper. Didn't that mean? No, if she used the heartless grass, how would she remember Lin Yi? With that thought, Tang Yin gave up on that idea. Target equals _blank. Chapter 1895. Chapter 1907. Xiao Xiao's solution being the strongest in the world evidently didn't appeal to her. In her heart, she only wanted to remember that little bit of happiness that belonged only to her. That sunny day under the tree, Lin Yi personally put the engagement ring on her. He didn't remember it anymore, but it was enough that she remembered it. Seeing the gentleness and happiness in Tang Yan's eyes, the Grand Elder and Sydney shook their heads at the same time. It seemed that this huge attraction wasn't as important as a memory. All right, I won't say any more. Li, tell Elder Zhang to give Tang Yin a satellite phone so that she can contact the Ice Palace at any time. Since the Grand Elder approved of Tang Yin's choice, he didn't restrict her from contacting the outside world. Of course, this phone could only reach the Ice Palace. Xiao Xiao called Meng Yao immediately after the call with Tang Yin. She couldn't wait to find someone to share her depressed feelings with. Yushu paused as she looked at the weird number on her phone. Hello. Shu, it's Xiao Xiao, Xiao Xiao said. Oh, Xiao Xiao. Yushu cried out. Yao Yao, it's Xiao Xiao calling. Oh, Xiao Xiao. Meng Yao was surprised as well. I just mentioned Xiao Xiao and she's calling? Yeah. Yushu nodded. Xiao Xiao, did you miss us? Of course, we're a prankster duo. Xiao Xiao said. And Yao Yao and Linny Honey too. Ah, right. Do you know about Tang Yin, sis? Yushu hadn't even been happy for 2 minutes when she remembered Tang Yin's situation. Her heart sank and her excitement waned. I know. Xiao Xiao was silent as well. Tang Yin, sis, just called me. Ah. She contacted you? Yushu blinked. Why didn't she contact me? We ancient sects have our own ways of contacting each other, but her situation is a bit stricter than mine. I can call whenever I want, but she can't. Xiao Xiao said. She called me this time to talk about Lin Yi's husband. Yeah, Yao Yao, and I wanted to talk to you about Shield Bro as well. Yushu said. Oh, you're looking for me too? Xiao Xiao blinked. What about Lin Yi? What happened to him? Are you in trouble? Trouble. I did, but it's over now. Yushu shook her head. So you did run into some trouble. Thank goodness you're fine. Xiao Xiao relaxed. So you're looking for me? It's like this. Although Shield Bro used the forgetfulness herb and forgot about Tang Yin Sis, there seems to be a gap in his memory. Yushu said. Fault? Vacancy. What do you mean? Xiao Xiao didn't quite understand what Yushu meant. Yushu sighed and didn't know how to describe it more accurately. It's like this, to be more specific. All of Shield Bro's memories of Tang Yin Sis are gone, which means that no matter if it's you, me, Yao Yao Sis, or anyone else related to Tang Yin Sis, Shield Bro doesn't remember anything, but he remembers you, me, Yao Yao Sis, and everyone else, but he doesn't remember Tang Yin Sis. Is there a problem with that? Xiao Xiao didn't think there was anything wrong with what Yushu said. Naturally, there's a problem, Yushu said. Yushu said, Shield Bro, he knows you're his small wife, so he's thinking, who's his big wife? But he doesn't remember, so he asked Yao Yao and I. Luckily, we interrupted him, or else he'd ask again, and we wouldn't know how to explain. It's fine once, but if it happens too many times, it'll be a problem. I see. Isn't that easy? Yao Yao Sis always wants to be the big wife, right? Then just tell Linny Honey that Yao Yao Sis is the big wife, Xiao Xiao said after some thought. Xiao Xiao said after some thought. Meng Yao had taken advantage of the situation, but Xiao Xiao didn't have any thoughts of going against them right now. In order to not waste Tang Yun's efforts, Meng Yao had taken advantage of the situation. It was a happy ending. No way. Yushu shook her head. I wanted to do that before, but Shield Bro doesn't remember Tang Yin, but he remembers our relationship. He almost thought I was sick last time. That's true. Xiao Xiao frowned. This was a problem. If there was a small wife, then there had to be a big wife. So who was the big wife? So, Yao Yao and I were thinking about discussing it with you. Yushu said helplessly. Let me think. Xiao Xiao thought about it carefully. After a while, she asked, You're saying that Linny Honey doesn't remember what happened between me and Tang Yin Sis, right? Yes, he doesn't remember anything like that at all. Yushu nodded. Then he probably doesn't remember what we talked about Tang Yin Sis, right? Xiao Xiao continued. That should be it. He doesn't remember anything related to Tang Yin Sis, Yushu said. That's good, I've got an idea. Xiao Xiao said suddenly. What idea? Yushu asked quickly. Let's say that I'm the one who pestered Lin Honey to chase after him. Xiao Xiao said. Isn't that how it is? Yushu was confused. It's not the same, listen to me, Xiao Xiao said. Then you tell Lin Honey that he doesn't like me. So I asked to be the small wife, allowing him to find the big wife he likes and have a threesome with him. Ugh, will that work? Yushu hesitated. Lin wasn't an idiot. Couldn't he see the problem? Of course. When Lin Honey took me in, it was because of Tang Yin Sis's help. He doesn't remember anything about Tang Yin Sis now, so he'll only remember that I chased him. As for how he agreed to it, he definitely doesn't remember, so there's a lot of stuff going on here, Xiao Xiao said. Doesn't that just benefit Lin Yi? Yushu put Meng Yao's ear on the phone as well after getting the call. Meng Yao heard Xiao Xiao say that she wanted Lin Yi to find a big wife. Didn't that mean that Lin Yi had another woman? And so Meng Yao gasped subconsciously. Target equals _ blank. Chapter 1896. Overjoyed, but after saying that, Meng Yao felt like she was being too nosy. Tang Yin and Xiao Xiao didn't have any objections. Why would she care? I don't have a choice. This is the only way I can think of. Otherwise, I really don't know how to deal with him. Xiao Xiao didn't really care about Lin Yi having a big wife. She was a small wife, and she had already accepted the fact that Meng Yao and Yushu would become Lin Yi's women in the future. So she came up with this idea. Meng Yao was silent. Indeed, only Xiao Xiao's method could explain why Lin he didn't have a main wife and had a main wife. Lin he remembered how Xiao Xiao had chased him, and if she'd just randomly come up with an excuse saying that she was a second wife, he probably wouldn't have believed her. He remembered that Xiao Xiao was a second wife, and it wasn't a joke. That was why he'd asked so seriously. It seems like this is the only way. We really can't think of anything else. Meng Yao helplessly accepted the reality. But Yao Yao, you can try a little harder, okay? We told him to find a big wife, but he doesn't have one yet, right? If you become his big wife, wouldn't that be fine? Xiao Xiao could tell that Meng Yao wasn't in a good mood. I don't think I can. Let him find someone else. Meng Yao said subconsciously, but regretted it immediately after. Why couldn't she become Lin Yi's big wife? But she'd already said it, and she couldn't go back on her words. You guys take care of it. Xiao Xiao didn't mind. All right, let's talk later. I need to go train. Time's up. Aren't you going to talk to Linny? Meng Yao asked. I won't. Xiao Xiao hesitated before shaking her head. I promised Rock Candy that I wouldn't contact Lin until he successfully makes the Ice Heart Jade Bone Pill. I can't go back on my words. All right, let's keep in touch then. Meng Yao said, can I call this number? No, this number is encrypted. You can't call in. Xiao Xiao shook her head. There's no cell signal in the Ice Palace, but only ancient sects have satellite phone numbers. The reason I'm calling you guys is because of Bingtang Sis and Aunt Qing's trust in me. But I can't tell you this number. Yeah, it's fine. We don't really have anything to do. Meng Yao stopped asking after hearing the reason. I will contact you regularly. By the way, you said you encountered some trouble just now? What's going on? Xiao Xiao remembered what Shu said about the trouble. It's actually like this. Meng Yao simply explained the trouble they'd run into, and it wasn't as scary as Yushu's. Meng Yao's words sounded a little flat, but even so, Xiao Xiao could hear the danger in it. Ah, that's scary. If Linny Honey didn't explode, wouldn't he be in danger? Xiao Xiao said. Yeah, but there was nothing we could do. I wanted to contact you back then, but I didn't have a way to contact you. Meng Yao said helplessly, but at least we're out of danger now. I wish I could help you guys so much, but my strength is still too low. Xiao Xiao was a weird person, but she sighed because of her strength. Bingtang Sis, maybe she'd help if I begged her, but she'd look down on Lin Yi and break that 2-year promise. Meng Yao and Yushu were silent. They didn't know if the inheritor was in danger, but Tang Yin was already the inheritor, and Lin Yi had forgotten about her. But if Xiao Xiao were to become the inheritor, then Lin Yi wouldn't just let it go like that. If he sacrificed Xiao Xiao to save Lin Yi, then Lin Yi wouldn't be happy either. It was a bit of a headache. Luckily, they didn't contact Xiao Xiao, and luckily Lin Yi was out of danger by himself. But if I'd known, I'd still ask her to help. Worst case scenario, I'd just become the inheritor. If Tang Yin Sis can do it, so can I. Xiao Xiao smiled. All right, it's all over now. Let's not talk about these depressing things. Meng Yao shook her head. Xiao Xiao, go do your thing. I'll discuss with Shu how to explain this to Lin Yi the next time he brings it up. Hanging up, Meng Yao sighed softly. She had to find a big wife for Lin Yi just like that. She really didn't want to, but she had no choice. Xiao Xiao's suggestion was the only solution. Lin Yi had entered the Jade space long ago and started practicing the second stage of the art of dragon mastery. This feeling of accumulating made Lin Yi feel like he was back in the mountains when he was practicing the first stage of the art of dragon mastery. It was the same feeling he had back then, feeling the qi flow in his body getting faster and faster under the activation of the arts, but the amount of qi he was absorbing wasn't much. More accurately speaking, Lin Yi didn't have that crazy absorption feeling he got from the first stage of the art of dragon mastery, and so his leveling speed was slowing down. But Lin Yi also noticed the positive. While the absorption speed was slower, the energy converted by the second stage of the art of dragon mastery was purer. In other words, the amount of energy Lin Yi absorbed was less, but the converted energy was more refined. This made Lin Yi's Earth class early phase start to loosen up a little, and he was getting closer to Earth class early phase peak. When Lin Yi noticed this, he couldn't help but be overjoyed. If it weren't for this, Lin Yi would have switched back to the first stage of the art of dragon mastery, because the first stage absorbed a lot of qi. But now, it seemed like it was pointless. The energy consumption was a little too high, and the efficiency was too low. But while he was happy, he was also depressed. The happy part was that Lin Yi's strength had increased, but the depressed part was that the second stage of the art of dragon mastery seemed to be stuck at the early stage. When Lin Yi used it, he wasn't very familiar with it, and it didn't feel as smooth as the first stage. Of course, he'd only been training for a couple of days, and he knew that it wasn't wise to bite off more than he could chew. His strength had to be increased bit by bit, not all at once. Elder Jiao had already told him to take it easy and steady, so there was no point in thinking about that unrealistic speed. Target equals _ blank. Chapter 1897. Chapter 1909. News of pangolin the next morning. Lin Yi drove Meng Yao and Yushu to school. Lin Yi, on the other hand, didn't have much to do. Medicine majors didn't have to participate in the student council election, and the class president of the major had to be a member of the school's student council. As for the faculty's student council, he could get a position there anyways, so he didn't have to worry about the election at all. That was the benefit of being a minor. The other majors, on the other hand, had to participate in the election if they wanted to enter the student council or faculty's student council. After all, there was a limit to the number of people in each major. Meng Yao and Yushu went to participate in the election, and Lin Yi went back to the dorm with nothing to do. He knew that the three perverts would ask him some questions, but Lin Yi didn't think that he'd be surrounded the moment he entered the room. "I say, Lin Yi boss, that's not very nice of you. Was that your girlfriend looking for you yesterday? You're living with her? And you lied to us that you're staying with your relative?" Song Xiao Dao started yelling when he saw Lin Yi enter the room. "Big bro Lin, you're amazing. I always thought that Wang Xinyan was your girlfriend, but now it seems that your girlfriend isn't worse than Wang Xinyan at all." Bai Weituo said, "I think that this year's school beauty ranking is also on it." "School beauty list? What's that?" Lin Yi asked. "Oh, it's just some students who have nothing better to do at school. And the department's QQ group have selected the freshman campus spell list. There is information and a brief introduction for us boys to refer to." Bai Weituo said, "There's one every year. It's become a habit of our school." "Right, don't change the subject. Which one of them is your girlfriend?" "Ugh, neither." Lin Yi shook his head. "Neither." Bai Weituo paused, and Song Xiaodao and Zhao Xingji looked at him in disbelief. "How is that possible? I'm not lying, I'm not lying." Lin Yi smiled bitterly. "A relative of mine asked me to take care of them. We're from the same city, so we're quite familiar with each other. I'm basically their follower." Lin Yi added inwardly, she was his follower. "Lackey? No way." Bai Weituo's eyes widened. "Big brother Lin, you're not lying? Why would I lie to you? Yes means yes, no means no. Do you think I'd go to Wang Xinyan's place instead of hanging out with her if she really was my girlfriend?" Lin Yi shrugged with a bitter smile. "That's true. If it were me, I definitely wouldn't do that." Bai Weituo nodded. Zhao Xingji and Song Xiaodao believed what Lin Yi was saying, but they were still a little suspicious of Lin Yi's relationship with either Meng Yao, Yushu, or Sinin. "What's the plan for today?" Lin Yi interrupted everyone's guesses and asked. "Today, our department has nothing to do. Xiao Dao and Sheng Ji said that they want to go shopping. They are all foreigners and have never been here before. I was just about to bring them around. Brother Lin, are you going too?" Bai Weituo asked. "Sure, let's go together then." Lin Yi said, "But, Juan's call came just as Lin Yi finished his sentence. Jun bro, Lin Yi picked up. Why are you still calling me brother? Ling Shan, Yu Tian, and the others are calling you boss already. I'll go back to calling you boss. You're our captain in the first place, our boss. Juan said, Up to you. What's up? Lin Yi knew that as his strength increased, the people around him would return to their original state. Where are you? I have something to discuss with you. It's about House Yu and the drug gang. Juan said. Before House Yu fell, it was a bit troublesome to investigate, but it's much easier now. We got some information. All right, where are you? I'll come find you immediately. Armadillo's smiling face appeared in Lin Yi's mind, and then it turned into Ziyu. Lin Yi clenched his fist as he asked faintly. No matter who it was, if they touched someone close to Lin Yi wouldn't let them go unscathed. This was Lin Yi's personality. I'm in Donghai. Right, I didn't tell you yet. I got a promotion. I solved a big case a while back, so I got transferred to Donghai. I'm now the vice director here. My position hasn't changed, but this is the provincial capital, so I'm half a rank higher. Juan said. You're still in Songshan. I'll drive back to find you. You're in Donghai. Lin Yi's expression was a bit weird, but he smiled. I'm in Donghai right now, Donghai Industry University. I just came here to report. Huh? No way, you're in Donghai too? That's great. I was a bit depressed about not being able to see you often, but now it's great. Juan said. Ah, yeah, you're at the police station? I don't know the way. Lin Yi was new to Donghai, and he was completely clueless. Wait for me at the school gate. I'll pick you up in 15 minutes. Juan said. All right, see you later. Lin Yi agreed before turning to Bai Wei to Ah and the others apologetically. I'm sorry. An old friend came looking for me. I'm afraid I can't go shopping with you guys. No way, Lin bro. You have so many things to do here in Donghai. Bai Wei Tuo was a bit disappointed. Is it a guy or a girl? A guy, it's a guy this time. Lin Yi sweated. Let's go together if you don't believe me. Perfect, let's go together. But Lin bro, we're not spying on you. Bai Wei Tuo said quickly. Lin Yi smiled helplessly. Of course, we're not spying on him. Weren't you guys just curious? But the three didn't see anyone special at the school gate, and there weren't any beauties either. They lost interest and went to a nearby bus stop after saying goodbye to Lin Yi. Lin Yi stood in front of the school gate, and an Audi stopped in front of Lin Yi. Juan got out of the car and waved at Lin Yi. Boss,